अस्सलाम ख़वातीन और हज़रात, वेलकम बैक टू अनदर एपिसोड ऑफ थॉट बिहाइंड थिंग्स। जैसा कि आपको पता है, हमारी आजकल सीरीज चल रही है विद एंडेवर पाकिस्तान, where we're trying to find out the 50 most exciting startups that are currently functional and growing in Pakistan. बहुत सारी इंडस्ट्रीज़ को हमने ऑलरेडी कवर कर लिया है, एग्रीकल्चर को, लीगल को, टेक, आईटी, ट्रांसपोर्ट। लेकिन एक पर्टिकुलर ऐसी स्पेस है जो कि समझना बड़ा मुश्किल है। उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा ग्लैमर होता है, बहुत ज़्यादा ग्लिट्स होता है। उसमें जो लोग काम कर रहे होते हैं वो जनरली आके इनसाइट देते नहीं हैं, वो अपने काम में ही लगे रहते हैं। बट उसके अंदर एक बड़ा इम्पॉर्टेंट, ज़ाहिर है हर इंडस्ट्री में जैसा कि आप देख रहे हैं कि बार बार बात हो रही है डिजिटाइजेशन की। हाउ डू यू सॉर्ट ऑफ bring a fragmented industry together and then create value out of it. तो इस इंडस्ट्री के अंदर भी there is a lot of opportunity for creating that digitized layer जिसके थ्रू डेटा आता है, और डेटा आता है तो उससे फिर ग्रोथ आती है, एंड देन पोटेंशियली बहुत सारी अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ और बिजनेस की आती हैं। आज हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं एक बहुत ही ख़ास मेहमान, जिनको इंट्रोड्यूस कराने से पहले क्योंकि अब हम कराची में आके कॉन्वर्जेशंस रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हैं, तो आई वांट टू गिव अ क्विक शाउट आउट टू किकस्टार्ट, जहाँ पर हम आज ये शूट कर रहे हैं। किकस्टार्ट इज़ ए को-वर्किंग स्पेस, और वो बहुत सारे उनके पूरे पाकिस्तान में हैं, कराची में भी हैं। हम नीचे लिंक डाल देंगे, यू कैन चेक दोज आउट। सो थैंक यू किकस्टार्ट फॉर दैट। एंडेवर पाकिस्तान को भी मैं शाउट आउट देना चाहूँगा। यू गाइस कैन चेक दीज गाइज आउट। देयर एन incredible ecosystem builder that are helping Pakistani startups go global. There's a lot about them. We'll in the future talk to someone that is running that as well to help you understand more कि exactly वो लोग क्या करते हैं। बट अगर आपको उसके बारे में भी मज़ीद जानना है तो नीचे लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन में है। आज हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं ज़यान बवानी, हु इज़ द co-founder and CEO of TicketWala. And if correct me if I'm wrong, but ये 2019 में उन्होंने शुरू किया था। द आइडिया वाज टू एक्चुअली डिजिटाइज जो आपके टिकट्स होते हैं, चाहे कॉन्सर्ट्स के हों, इवेंट्स के हों, डिफरेंट छोटे जो आपके इवन वर्कशॉप्स वगैरह हैं, उन इवेंट्स के हों, जो कि पुराने ज़माने में आपको याद होगा कि आपको किसी दुकान में जाना पड़ता था। पहले पोस्टर से पता लगता था कोई कॉन्सर्ट हो रहा है, फिर वो जी इस दुकान में चले जाएं और वहाँ से टिकटें ख़रीद लें। इट्स अ वेरी सॉर्ट ऑफ इनएफिशिएंट प्रोसेस। आजकल के ज़माने में हमने पिछले दिनों कपल ऑफ कॉमेडियन से भी बात की, अब्बास बुखारी एंड अदर्स, जो कि अब स्टैंड अप सीन में आ रहे हैं। और उसमें भी यही था कि इन लोगों की सोशल मीडिया पे ऑडियंसेस हैं, मुख्तलिफ इलाक़ों में एग्जिस्ट करती हैं। दे वर एबल टू यूटिलाइज दीज प्लेटफॉर्म्स टू बी एबल टू क्विकली सेल देयर शोज एज वेल। सो इट्स एन इनक्रेडिबल स्पेस, और उसके अंदर बड़े अरसे से बड़े सारे लोग काम करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, बट किसी ने आके अपना मार्क नहीं बनाया था। किसी ने आके एक जेन्युइनली ऐसी चीज़ नहीं बनाई थी जो कि जिसका एक्सपीरियंस भी अच्छा हो और जो कि ग्रो भी कर सके। एंड देन फाइनली टिकटवाला हैज़ बीन डूइंग अ फेयरली गुड जॉब। इनके नंबर्स के हिसाब से दे राइट नाउ दे होल्ड 95% ऑफ द मार्केट शेयर। they've been able to win the Asia Pacific ICT Alliance Award, जो कि आई बिलीव अपिक्टा का जो सिंगापुर में होता है। सो दे वर सिल्वर मेडलिस्ट फॉर दैट। जो उससे पहले जब ये सिलेक्शन हो रही होती है तो पाशा के HBL स्पॉन्सर्ड अवार्ड्स होते हैं, उसके ऊपर दे वन गोल्ड इन 2024. both of that was 2024, and then they won the fastest growing brand of the year award for 2022. So I mean, it's not just a startup that is doing a digital work. They've gotten the recognition, उनकी validation हो चुकी है, अब वो scale की तरफ जा रहे हैं। A lot of the artists that you're probably going and attending the concerts for वो most likely इधर से ही आ रहे हैं। I'm sure a lot of you guys have interfaced with them.
Despite the best efforts of governments to move the world apart, entrepreneurs are bringing us closer together as we see innovation literally everywhere.
The reason I love Endeavor so much is you realize that you could create something anywhere.
Companies can also come from anywhere. It can come from Brazil, it can come from Mexico, it can come from Istanbul.
If you're ambitious, go to Europe, get a job, or to the US. But you're mega ambitious, stay home and build.
This episode of Thought Behind Things is presented in partnership with Endeavor Pakistan.
Zayaan bhai, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time out and coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for the introduction. I think you explained everything quite well. I don't think it's as much glamour as you made it seem. Ragda bahut khana padta hai hame, especially when you're doing the ticketing and managing the gate for these events in Pakistan. So Yeah, sure. It's fun, but there's a lot
Yeah.
of operational work and even hazard at times in this
No,
business.
I understand. सबसे पहले बिफोर आई गेट इनटू द होल इंडस्ट्री क्या कर रही है, आप लोग क्या कर रहे हैं, किधर आप अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ देख रहे हैं, मुझे थोड़ा सा अपने बारे में बताएं. Where were you born? अर्ली लाइफ कहाँ पे गुजारी? What were some of the major themes that sort of built you as the person that you are today and that enabled you to start TicketWala?
Born in Karachi, raised in Karachi. I've definitely had exposure to all over the world. You know, we used to go on family holidays and whatnot. We grew up quite privileged in that sense, alhamdulillah. I went to Bayview Academy and then I went to the Karachi American School. So I had different types of exposure growing up in that sense as well. Business was always a big part of my family. I'm a Bawany and all the Bawanis are generally just doing business. Okay, so I think it was expected of me to come into the family business, but I didn't go into that for numerous reasons and decided to start my own thing, which was probably a lot of people doubted in the beginning and also thought I was a bit crazy to do that. But I'm glad I did. I had a passion for events my entire life, events and marketing. Just doing something was always in my blood, I think. Because my favorite thing to do when I was a kid was iron money on Eid. any Eid I would get, I was like, yeah, nice crisp notes, you know.
साफ सुथरा नोट होना चाहिए.
Yeah. So there's that. I sold brownies in school. I sold bakras on Eid. I tried everything. Something random every now and then. There's 100 different stories within my family just making these jokes ke school mein biryani beche the mula chalo raita bechte hain, you know. So there's always just that within me.
So there's always a hustler in you कि यार ये एक छोटी सी opportunity है, upsell क्यों ना करें.
Exactly. And so even with events, especially events, I was doing all the events when I was in high school over here. So the school, like the prom and this and that, you know, I was helping with the organization of all that. When I went to university, I was doing my own events. I sold tickets literally to my own birthday. You know, booked out the club, got DJs in, sold tickets, did the marketing, you know, made money on that. Did the graduation ball for the university, opposed the official graduation ball. Ours became the official one eventually. You know, so events was just something I always wanted to do. And so it was a natural progression for us when we moved back. And my two
Makes sense.
co-founders, Zayaan and Rehan, the other one is also Zayaan. So it gets very confusing.
That's
for-
interesting. That must be
for
quite a
people.
confusing nightmare.
It is.
कि लोग किसको.
And it's been like that our entire life because he's my oldest friend as well. So since we were
I see.
literally 2 years old, 3 years old, we've been best friends. And so our whole life has been Zayaan A and Zayaan B, you know. So
Right.
he's Zayaan Abedin, I'm Zayaan Bawany, right? So we've gotten used to that and that's still ongoing and hopefully will be for a very, very long time. So he
Very cool.
went to Turkey.
Just before we get into the event side of things, because I know this story is coming up and I'm very curious about that. You did mention, आपने थोड़ा स्टार्ट में बोला, आपने कहा कि मैं बेव्यू गया और कराची अमेरिकन गया और मुझे बड़ा डाइवर्स एक्सपोजर मिला. Run me through, because I'm not from Karachi, I've heard a lot about it, and so Karachi Bayview का कल्चर क्या है, how was that experience, and then Karachi American, how was that different? My understanding is you went there for high school.
Yeah, so Bayview is a great school. It always has been. It's a lot nicer now as a campus than it used to be back then as well, especially. So I'll give you an example was that the ground that we used to be in, okay, like the outside where lunchtime used to happen, it was just chaos. Okay, everyone was released into this ground. There was just mitti. Someone's playing football. Someone's playing basketball. The canteen is there. I've literally broken my wrist because, you know, I was just eating fries and a football came and hit my hand and broke my wrist. You know, so it's just like complete chaos. It was a lot of fun. I loved it. And, you know, let's say the classrooms didn't have ACs, for example. Ruspanka, you'd be sweating all day. You'd have PE first thing in the morning and then you'd be drenched.
Quintessential
all day,
desi
you know,
Pakistani school जो होता है,
Yeah,
average
yeah.
private school जिस तरह होता है, हाँ.
Exactly. But it was a very good school. But Karachi American School was on a different spectrum, right? So it was an incredible campus. You had everything from like drama and theater to, you know, you have a full-on football field in the school. You have an Olympic-sized swimming pool. You know, it was just different. You know, I was like, wow, AC in the classroom. It was amazing. So it was a completely different experience. And I think how my life played out with, being in Bayview up until, let's say, O levels and switching to KS for high school, I think that was perfect. It gave me the exposure. I, went and got to meet a lot of new people as well. And it was great. It was great. I can't complain.
Interesting. And so right after that, you went for university in the UK. What university was that? What program did you opt for? And what was the rationale behind? I mean, my understanding is obviously Karachi American से generally जो लोग graduate कर रहे होंगे वो सारे बाहर ही जा रहे होंगे. I don't think anyone would have ended up in Pakistan. But why did you decide कि यार चलो UK चलते हैं और ये program करते हैं?
My grades were probably not the best, to be honest. I mean, I wasn't a bad student, but I wasn't like the best student.
The most academic, let's call it that.
I was very, very different from the way I am now. Now I read books for fun on business, and I had never read a book before at that time. And so, very, very different person. You change over the years for sure. I went to Lancaster University for marketing. It was the #1 marketing school in the UK. It was something that I was interested in. I kind of had a knack for to begin with. So it was just, I always knew I'm going to go for marketing. Now I wish I did something else. But at that time I was
Why do you say
clear.
that?
I feel like university was more about the exposure. Okay, I grew a lot as an individual. I didn't learn much of a hard skill. I think university is great for that. I think if you want to go in a hard skill, marketing is something that you kind of have a knack for, or you don't. It's something that you can learn online very easily. It's not, I don't think you have to go through an entire 3-year degree for it as such. So I wish
Makes sense.
I went for something else, maybe computer science or data or something of that sort.
Makes sense. And so while you were in the UK, you mentioned that you were doing a bunch of these events. Yeah, were you doing this because, I mean, what was driving you to do all of this? Was it something, कुछ लोग होते हैं, जिस तरह मैं event managers को जानता हूँ इस्लामाबाद लाहौर के, mostly आपको वो ऐसे लोग मिलेंगे जो कि खुद हमेशा ना events पे जाना शौकीन मिजाज लोग थे, right? So वो गए, उन्होंने जाके पहले पाकिस्तान में concerts किए. I feel like a good businessman generally, a good problem solver is one जो कि पहले जिस भी इंडस्ट्री में होता है वो उस इंडस्ट्री में खुद एज अ कंज्यूमर जाना चाहता है और फिर जाके ना अनइम्प्रेस्ड जब वापस आते हैं ना फिर वो कहता है यार यू नो व्हाट आई कैन डू अ बेटर जॉब एंड देन दे सॉर्ट ऑफ गेट इनटू द एंटायर स्पेस at least the passionate ones. Were you interested in events? Yeah, was this more of a networking thing? Okay, I'll go to events, I'll interact with a bunch of people and I'll grow my network. What was the thought process behind you not being very academic and being more extracurricularly, more ये एक्स्ट्रा आगे पीछे की चीज़ें करते हैं और इवेंट्स करते हैं और ऑफिशियल बॉल को कटा करके अपना बॉल करते हैं. आई मीन दिस इज there's a lot of risk to that as well, and that's a lot of breaking the status quo there. What was driving that?
I enjoyed events. I enjoyed it. I knew a lot of people. I was very, very social, and so I knew I could pull a crowd. I knew how to market the events and how to bring people in, and I was willing to take that risk. But the risk appetite is there, but you need to be smart about the risk. The risk shouldn't completely blow you out of the water, right? That's the same for right now. There should be, like you have in trading, there's a risk-reward ratio, right? And so that was always present. And so every event that we ever did was always something that I knew was going to hit. It was something that, it was needed. And so, like for example, one was like a networking / disco night that we had in university that was sold out. Then there was the school, my birthday one that was, again, we brought in DJs from across the UK or even outside of the UK, which wasn't really happening in Lancaster, again, sold out. The graduation ball was just, I knew everyone was disappointed in what they had just announced, myself included, and I was like, man, like, no.
We deserve better than this.
Yeah, I'm not paying that much for this crap. And so, I got my other couple of friends that were also into events, and, we just executed and did well. But, so there was a need, one, and there was just I enjoyed it. I just really enjoyed it, and I knew I could do well at it. And so that was pretty much all it was. I don't think it was anything else as such. But when you talk about you being a consumer of that market, I think that's probably one of the biggest advices that I tend to give people is also that, when you're identifying a business, it needs to be something that you yourself would use. Okay, if you're launching a product, if you yourself would not use that product, then how do you expect anyone else to? Or even to create that product in a way that's actually valuable. And so I had been on both sides of it. In the UK, for example, I was attending events, but I was also selling tickets to these events. And Pakistan is a very, very different market. Very different market. Okay, so when I came back, we were very naive. Okay, so we built out our product like it should have been used in the UK. Okay, what I mean by that was that when I was doing my own events, I would go on these ticketing platforms, I would list my own event, market my own event, sell the tickets, and the money would just hit our accounts. You would never be in touch with anyone from those ticketing platforms. Over here, we've done close to 4,000 events in the last couple of years, and one person has ever made their own event on our website. Okay, so it's a very, very different market, and I say that because internationally you're expected to do things yourself, and the premium product is where you get personal assistance. Over here, personal assistance and someone doing it for you is the standard, and being able to do it yourself, wow. Right? So it's completely different. And so you have to localize. And so that really screwed us in the first year, 2 years. And then we changed it. Now we don't even have that creative functionality on our side, but we're bringing it back because now the market's ready and people are starting to ask for that. Oh, it'd be great if we could do this ourselves. But it's been 6 years.
Makes sense. In 2018, you graduated, you came back to Pakistan. Was the first thing that you decided to do TicketWala? या did you sort of, ज़ाहिर एक बंदा वापस आता है पहले figure out करता है कि यार मैंने क्या करना है. पहले तो ये बताएं, did you come back immediately or did you stay there? I think you get a graduate visa for a year or so.
उस time पे नहीं था visa. So the visa thing happened a couple of weeks after I left. And so I never got that benefit. Otherwise, I would have probably stayed there for a bit, for sure. So because my father had passed away in the end of my second year, and so that's when the pressure really hit. I started studying a lot, and I actually did well, brought my grades up, and the pressure kind of hit, right? So, but I had now separated from the family business, essentially. The plan was always to come back and do that, but that was no longer something I could do because there was drama and whatnot. And so I had to now kind of do my own thing. And because of that, I would have probably stayed there if I could have, but I couldn't because of the visa. And then my family was here as well. So I came back. Initially, I wanted to do one of two things. I either wanted to do something in fitness. Okay, so I've always been very big on fitness. I'm a certified personal trainer. At that time, I was probably the most qualified person over here. So I had done my certification knowing I'm going to come back and I'm going to start something. But by the time I came back, there was a saturation in the market with gyms, with trainers, with all these meal plans and all that stuff, which wasn't happening when I did my certification. The second thing was I wanted to dry fruit. Okay, so I actually brought the machinery back with me from the UK. So I could actually dry, let's say, mangoes and strawberries and all that stuff very naturally. And it's still a great product. I still make it. I made it last month when mango season was here. So I was going to do that. I applied for jobs. There was, a place I really wanted to work at, Impact Activation Services. They do brand activations for events. And I got an offer from there. I interviewed and got offers from, let's say, HBL, and then I applied a few different places. But when TicketWala's idea came, the other Zayaan, he brought the idea to me, we can do ticketing. And it was like, yes, let's just drop everything and we're doing this. It was so natural because it was within that event space and it was an immediate, we know there's a need for this. So we dropped everything. And we were like, okay, from today, this is what we're doing. So
interesting. और 2019 में शुरू किया आप लोगों ने?
Yeah, 2019. And we were a blog for the first year. And then we launched our MVP 3 months before COVID with ticketing.
अच्छा, interesting. Yeah. when you launched this and you weren't working anywhere else,
No.
right?
I
Were
was
your other
trying
co-founders
for-
working somewhere else?
No, so all of us were fresh. I mean, it had been maybe a couple of months since we had been back since uni. So we were interviewing
you
and
were
we were
just-
coming up with things and no.
Yeah. So you were just drying fruit on the side and doing TicketWala business.
Yeah, I'd be going. I remember
Interesting.
go to football and I'd be taking my dry fruit and be like, yeah, try this one. Try this one.
That is such an
Everyone
interesting.
like this is-
I mean, I dry fruit and I sell tickets.
and no one was the backstory. So everyone's like, you have this big family business that you should be attending
Yeah.
to, and I'm like, phal khao, you know. Like, and then
तो
I'm
साइड वाला
like, okay,
सोचता होगा
now
यार
fruit
कि कौन सा
tickets.
मिड लाइफ क्राइसिस चल रहा है इसका. But by the way, dried fruit, I mean, I never found it in Pakistan. I tried that in Dubai. You can dry any fruit and it is phenomenal. Like if you try dried mangoes, it is another genre.
Yeah.
Or strawberries or anything. So I mean, if people haven't tried, I don't know if you guys are still doing it commercially, but someone needs to do it. It's an incredible space. But so origin story मुझे थोड़ी सी बताएं, right? So your friend came in, he said, listen, let's try this out. आप लोग उसके ऊपर काम कर रहे हैं. And for a lot of people, when they're thinking startups today, अब वो startup space भी ना थोड़ी सी ग्लैमराइज होना शुरू हो गई है. एंड व्हाट आई मीन बाय दैट इज कि, और मैं इसको आई एम नॉट डिसिंग ऑन दैट एट ऑल. आई थिंक इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू ग्लैमराइज थिंग्स बिकॉज वो फिर एक स्नोबॉल इफेक्ट लेकर आती हैं. बट वी हैव द शार्क टैंक हैपनिंग एंड वी हैव द सॉर्ट ऑफ द NICs एंड ऑल ऑफ दिस एंड दैट. एंड जो इवन स्टार्टअप वाले लोग भी हैं, वो जब इसके बारे में बात करते हैं ना, तो वो वो टैम्स एंड दिस एंड दैट एंड वो कीवर्ड्स फेंकते हैं, और वो सारा तो लगता है कि यार ये पता नहीं कोई इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकर आया है और वो आगे ना एक बड़े प्लान के साथ आके एक बड़ी चीज़ बना रहा है. और वो फिर वैल्यूएशन एंड फंड रेजिंग, इट सीम्स वेरी इंटिमिडेटिंग, राइट? विच इज़ वाई आई फील लाइक origin stories are very powerful, because there might be a lot of people who may have passion for things, but they would never get into it because they'd be like, यार ये तो मैं नहीं कर सकता, right? ये तो कोई बहुत ही कोई दुनिया हमें शेक करनी पड़ेगी before we can. And you guys were fresh out of college. You did not have like, ये नहीं था ना, नॉर्मली एक्सपेक्ट ये किया जाएगा कि यार जो ऑलरेडी इंडस्ट्री में ARY वाले आते हैं, टिकटिंग बिजनेस शुरू करते हैं, मेक सेंस. बट एक बंच ऑफ यूनिवर्सिटी ग्रेजुएट्स सेइंग के लिसन, लेट्स क्रिएट एन टिकटिंग प्लेटफॉर्म एट अ टाइम जब पेमेंट्स डिजिटाइज नहीं हुई प्रॉपरली, जब ऑनलाइन बाइंग, येस इट वॉज ग्रोइंग क्वाइट अ लॉट, बट देयर वाज स्टिल अ ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट. It's complicated and it sounds like a wicked problem. What happened in the first couple of years from the time that the idea sort of was, or the seed for the idea was planted, till the time that you guys were actually month on month doing business?
So three of us joined forces. We were all pretty aligned on the concept of what we wanted to do. We did some market research, saw that ticketing platforms were already around. They had been around for a while. In fact, I think the other ticketing platforms, BookMe and all, have been around for probably 7 years or so before we launched.
Yeah.
So
2012-13 में ये वो Plan 9 में incubate हो रहे थे.
yeah, so the technology itself wasn't necessarily what was missing. What we wanted to solve was discovery, right? So everyone around us was like, dude, there's nothing to do here, you know? It's like khana and that's about it. And to a certain extent, people still say that, you know? So we wanted to solve for that. We were like, look, there's a lot happening. We started researching events, researching what all there is to do. And we saw that there's so much to do. People just don't know about it. So let's solve for that. So we just launched a blog while we were thinking about the ticketing platform and how to do it. We had zero tech experience. Okay, the three of us. We still don't have a CTO. Okay. So it was tough in that sense. But we did the blog. We kind of did pretty well with that, at least with our follower growth and engagements and so forth. And we used that as a way to build our relationships within the industry, right? So when you have an event that's happening and this event is not getting any recognition at that point in time, because the ticketing platforms that were actually even ticketing events were the one-off large events that were happening, and they were also not really getting much online sale. 99.9% was probably still offline, right? So we were now giving recognition to all events organizers, especially the smaller ones, the more niche ones. And so rather than going after the larger events, we decided to do the complete opposite and go for the masses. Okay, so we knew that there's something for everyone and that needs to be highlighted. When you do that, when you write this really nice article about, let's say, your event, and we send it to you and we say, look, we've written this, we would love for you to share it, they will. They're going to put it out there. There's no reason why they wouldn't. And so that automatically brought you the traction. And so we kind of growth hacked our way forward. We still do, right? We don't have any internal marketing spend till today. And so that really, really worked for us. So by the time we launched our ticketing platform, we already had the relationships and the connections in the industry. But our technology was terrible. It was by far the worst platform I've ever used in my entire life. Okay? We were doing ticketing and I could not see the orders that were being placed. Okay? It was useless. So luckily we had no volume at that time. And when COVID hit, that was a blessing in disguise. We cried about it for a bit, that this is the end of everything. We had stupidly blown our entire family and friends round that we had raised from my mom and a friend of mine to just get started, build the platform and whatnot. And, we had 150,000 rupees in the bank. We had probably less than 100,000 rupees in all-time sales and 3,000 rupees of revenue at the time of COVID. Shut down the office, let go of whatever employees we did have. Obviously, we're not paying ourselves. And entertainment's the first thing to go and the last thing to come back. So it was a very, very difficult period. But at the same time, like I said, it was a blessing in disguise. It's the best thing that ever happened to us because it allowed us to take market share from our competition. It allowed us to build out our feature set. We had the last year, even if it wasn't in ticketing, but with exposure in the industry to understand what the market and the mentality was actually like and how to localize our product to actually be a winning product. So once things reopened, we knew we were going straight to the top. But it wasn't without having to pivot during COVID as well.
What was that pivot?
So a couple of things. One, we realized that everyone was screwed. It wasn't just us. Every industry.
Right.
And so everyone was going online, whether it was, personal trainers or whether it was makeup artists or whatever it was. Everyone was now going online and trying to sell themselves online, and this digitization was happening naturally because there was no other way. And these people needed a way to sell themselves. So what we started doing was we started listing them and their online courses as events on our platform. We essentially gave them the marketing that we were giving events. We gave them a place to register for their events or workshops or wherever it was, because they didn't want to give their bank accounts openly online on their Instagrams or whatever, transfer us the money and, So we were able to do that. And we actually had our best months to date. Well, now obviously we've done better. But at that time, during COVID. And so that actually sustained us. But it also wasn't enough. And so what we also needed to do is, so for example, one of us got a part-time job somewhere else at the same time, because you still have to sustain yourself. And the other two of us, we focused on, all three of us are partners in our other businesses as well, but our focus was more on this, which was the marketing agency. So what we did is we launched a marketing agency by the name of Source Digital, because we had a lot of incoming clients, essentially people just coming to us and saying, we'd love for you to help us with our marketing. So we took those people on for marketing, all sorts, basic social media stuff, maybe even web development stuff. And rather than having a full team in-house, because we couldn't afford that, I think even in that marketing agency, the max capital we ever put was 1 million rupees. Okay. And we made it work from there. So the way we did it was, we would get a client, we would find someone to outsource it to, right? And we would pay them per project, and then we would keep a cut on it. And so we were able to have that revenue come in and slowly build until we had a full team in-house. And we were able to sustain TicketWala. But what that also allowed us to do was to be able to provide additional services for our event clients in TicketWala. So for example, performance marketing. we were running ads for people. And so this allowed us to run ads for our event clients. And that has been such a key to our success because we don't have any internal marketing spend. Our event organizers transfer us their ad budgets and we run their ads for them through Facebook, through our Facebook or Meta or whatever, right? And so what that means is we get to collect that data. They themselves are as well, but they are also getting much, much better conversions over time. So we've done close to 4,000 events. Maybe we've run ads for 2,500, 3,000 of those. And so when you've done that, you've populated that Facebook pixel so much that our conversions are just going to be way better than what they would themselves get. So it's a win-win-win situation, right, essentially. And so we built upon that foundation, made it work. And once things eased up in October of 2021, we just kind of went straight to the top.
Makes sense. Tell me a bit about the technology though. So you said कि यार पहला प्लेटफॉर्म था बिल्कुल फारग था, कुछ उस पर समझ नहीं आ रही थी. टेक्नोलॉजी की मल्टीपल लेयर्स हैं. एक लेट्स से कि मैं कहता हूँ कि जो एक्चुअल हार्डकोर टिकटिंग है, ई कॉमर्स है कि यार एक बंदा आ रहा है आके ख़रीद रहा है, उसके पीछे उसकी सारी ऑर्डर मैनेजमेंट हो रही है. बट बियॉन्ड दैट एक्चुअली जो ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ है वो ये है कि हाउ डू यू वैलिडेट दोज टिकट्स, राइट? आपने आके उसके अंदर एक क्वांटिटी भी डाली हुई है. द सिस्टम हैज़ टू वर्क प्रॉपर्ली, वरना आपने 500 के इवेंट के ऊपर 5,000 टिकटें बेच दी तो तबाही मच सकती है. इवन बहुत सारे वेन्यूज़ के अंदर आपकी सीट्स भी डिसाइड हो रही होती हैं. अगर मैं ग्रैन्युलैरिटी पे जाऊँ, सो अगर इफ़ आई यूज़ लेट्स से टिकट मास्टर एंड आई बाय अ कॉन्सर्ट टिकट, तो या तो मैं जनरल एडमिशन लूँगा वरना मैं सीट लेवल पे सेलेक्ट करके करूँगा. एंड दैट्स प्रीटी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड. इस तरह के टिकटिंग सिस्टम्स आपको सिनेमास वगैरह में मिलते हैं कि यार मैं गया और मैंने सीट ले ली IMAX वगैरह पे. एक वो लेवल है कि जिसके अंदर एक्चुअल में आई एम नॉट जस्ट सेलिंग अ फ्लैट. शॉपिफाई का स्टोर नहीं है. There is actually a lot of use cases that are built into the system. दूसरा ये है कि जब टिकट आ गया तो उसकी एक QR जनरेट हो रहा है या जिस तरह से भी वो हो रहा है, उसको फिर आपने इवेंट के ऊपर वैलिडेट भी करना है, आपने क्रॉस वेरीफाई भी करना है. एंड उसके अपने 10 लफड़े आते हैं कि यार अच्छा वो वहाँ पे कौन कर रहा है, क्या वो टेक्नोलॉजी को समझ सकता है नहीं समझ सकता, क्या वो एक दफ़ा वैलिडेट करने के बाद आई एम श्योर विल कम टू दिस एज वेल कि जब ये इवेंचुअली डिप्लॉय हो रहा था तो उसमें फिर किस किस्म के मसले आते हैं. QR देना, अगेन गोरे को पता है, गोरा 100 इवेंट्स कर चुका है. बट पाकिस्तान में जब आप इनिशियली बता रहे हैं लोगों को कि यार अब तुम ऑनलाइन ख़रीद रहे हो और वो बंदा कह रहा है कि यार ये एक्चुअल भी यही चूना लग रहा है, तो वो उसको फाइनल करने में क्या मसले आते हैं. एंड थर्ड इज़ द पेमेंट्स, एंड दैट आई फील लाइक इज़ दी मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर एनी डिजिटल बिजनेस इन पाकिस्तान. अब तो ये कि विद सादा पे एंड नया पे एंड ऑल ऑफ दीज द प्रोलिफरेशन हैज़ हेल्प्ड क्वाइट अ लॉट. बट उस टाइम के ऊपर लोग आके यही कहते थे कि यार कैश ऑन डिलीवरी कर दें, आप जो है वो कर दें, बैंक ट्रांसफ़र ले लें, जो कि sounds fine, okay, ठीक है, I'll do bank transfer, but you're actually putting a ton of man hours and increasing a ton of human error to cross verify and validate just the payment aspect of it. इस सारे को मद्देनज़र रखते हुए जो टेक्नोलॉजी थी उस टाइम के ऊपर और जो टेक्नोलॉजी है आज, what does that look like?
Okay, so like I said, our technology in the beginning was very, very different from what it is today. The platform itself was really bad. And it was built for, even in theory, it was built for outside of Pakistan, not for Pakistan. Why I say that is because we didn't have the experience to be able to localize the product, which we eventually got and we did. What comes in localizing the product and where our USP comes within technology? A very small example, right? So we have internet issues in Pakistan. Major network issues. So when you're at an event with thousands of people, the network does not work. So how are you meant to scan and validate those tickets with the lack of internet? And so what we noticed was that a lot of the other platforms were actually pretending to scan even because it wasn't actually scanning, right? And we know this because we also had the technology and we could see it. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to build a system that could validate the tickets without the need for any internet. And so that's what we built. And so that became a big, big USP for us, especially for the much larger events where network issues were much more prominent. And it's still a huge issue, right? Network in general in Pakistan. It's much better than it used to be, but it's still a big problem. But that USP is great because it never fails. You do not need any internet, whether you're in the mountains, or here in the middle of the city. We can do any type of event under the sun, whatever the size, and we can validate. We can see all the information of the customer in real time, without internet. So that was one big thing.
तो ये आप किस तरह से कर रहे थे? Were you doing like text based or like what was the workflow there?
Yeah, so I don't want to reveal our secrets entirely.
No,
on
in
how
terms
we
of
built
user
the
experience.
platform.
मतलब मैं अगर कहूँ कि as if I buy the ticket,
Yeah.
what am I experiencing? मैं तो normally ये
Oh,
करूँगा ना
it's
कि मैं
completely
जाऊँगा मैं
normal.
कहूँगा कि यार
As you
Yeah.
would purchase a normal e-ticket, the process to the user is identical. There's absolutely
उसको
no difference.
QR मिलेगा उसको आगे.
Yeah, so you get a PDF with like an e-ticket, and on the e-ticket there's a unique QR code. Every single ticket has a unique
Right.
QR code, right? So that experience is the same probably no matter whichever platform you go to. Our
Same.
process might be easier for some people or not for others or whatever, right? But
अच्छा,
the
so
back
what
end,
you're saying is कि जब जो event itself है उसके ऊपर जाकर के आपने जब validate करना है तो आपको internet की ज़रूरत नहीं है. You can actually just validate that immediately.
So so the same with physical tickets and the same with e-tickets, you can copy them, right? It doesn't matter how good of a physical copy even it is, right? You can do whatever you want. People come and say, oh, UV light wali ticket humne बनाई है, and ये नहीं सब copy हो जाता है. In fact, people come with even better tickets than what you made. And so we've experienced everything under the sun in that domain. But even e-tickets are even easier to copy. Screenshot लेना है और क्या करना है, print करना है, 10 copy print करना है, right? So you have to have a way to validate, and this QR code is the only way to actually get away from that entire black, fake tickets type thing. And that's because the ticket can only be scanned once. And when you do scan the ticket, the QR code, all the data comes right there in front of us, and so we can verify, right? So now
Makes
every event is completely customizable. I think I mentioned earlier that in Pakistan, the personalized experience is the standard. That's what people expect. And so you are expected to build out those niche features for people. And we did that. Probably now we say no to a lot, but in the beginning we did that. So we've got all these random ass things that our website can actually do that others can't. And so, let's take one of these raves, for example, right? Or any of these hush hush type events. They don't want to be put out there publicly. And so what we have the feature of is an event will not actually be visible on TicketWala's website unless you have the unique link. Once you have access to that link, it's only visible through that link, like an unlisted YouTube video, right? Then you can password protect that event as well. So you need the password. Let's say the password gets out. Now you can place the order. But while placing the order, you would have to fill out a form. That form can be made entirely up to you, as you would a Google form. Okay? So now you have to fill out those. Once you fill out those details, it's going to go for approval. And now the event organizer is going to review the details and then either accept or reject you. Once you're accepted, you'll get a payment link. And now you can complete your order, and now you will get an e-ticket. So we've built out all these type of things where we've really had to localize the product, and it's because of that we're able to cater to every type of event in Pakistan.
Makes sense. इस वक्त अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं कि आपका जो स्केल, और बाय द वे आपने पेमेंट का नहीं मुझे बताया, उस टाइम के ऊपर पेमेंट जो थी वो क्या बैंक ट्रांसफर हो रही थी? यू हैड पेमेंट गेटवे अटैच्ड ऑलरेडी?
Delivery. So we always tried to get the online payment methods with us, and so we did. Even from the start, we had online payment methods, but people were not using it. Like you said, the digitization was just not there in Pakistan, and even when it was there, it was cash on delivery. And I think still predominantly in the market, cash on delivery is king. And today we have zero cash on delivery. So it was maybe 99% of our orders, then 95, then 90, and then we kept kind of dropping it. And then when COVID happened, we were able to use COVID as a reason to wean out cash on delivery, saying, sanitary aspects and this and that. And also it was just a problem, right? So we pushed it onto our event organizers. So for example, let's say 3 attempts are made, okay, to the customer. And if the customer doesn't receive the tickets, then the tickets are sent back to you or whatever. And so you get hit with a charge, right, for the return. So what we started doing is we're like, look, we're losing money on this. It's a lot of operational hours. Anyway, we make, a small percentage. And so we weren't able to handle it. And so we started pushing that onto the event organizer. We were like, look, you can enable cash on delivery if you want, but if there are returns, and this is the return percentage, you will have to bear that cost. And it also defeats the purpose entirely of an e-ticket, doesn't it? So because of cash on delivery, we're now also physically printing those tickets. And so it was going into, chalo, they also had the QR codes and whatnot, but it defeats the entire purpose of it. And so we wanted to scale it out. And so we eventually did. And I think we're probably one of the first e-commerce platforms right now, which is 100% online payments. There's zero cash on delivery. It's not even integrated at this point on this new site.
But there's still bank transfer happening?
There is bank transfer happening in the sense that it happens through, let's say one link, one bill, or it happens through the direct account transfers that PayFast or someone does. Yeah, it's still an
you
e-commerce
don't have
transaction.
to sit there and validate it.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't have to go through every single screenshot. And that's what we actually sell to our event organizers as well, like the new ones. It's like, it's a very painful process for them as well, right? They have to go and validate every single customer and their screenshots is real. We're doing that for you, And so we also don't need to do that anymore. It's automated and so forth. I think payments in general are still, this is still getting better. There's still a lot of issues with payment platforms, with banks and whatnot. Sometimes they send the wrong error code. Sometimes they don't, for example, verify the status of the payment fast enough. And especially when you're talking about e-tickets for an event, it's very time sensitive. Let's say the event is in half an hour from now and you want to attend it and your payment doesn't get verified, you're going to be pissed. And so you still have to deal with those kind of issues, but there's not really much you can do around that. But we've tried to do everything we possibly can to make the customer experience as good as possible. So people always just ask, why do you have PayFast and PayPro and PayMob? They all do the same thing. And it's like, it's because if one is having any issues whatsoever, we can immediately turn that off and switch to the other one. And the processing bank behind each one of them is different. And therefore, the transaction acceptance is different. And so one payment potentially could have an issue on one platform, but not on another platform. And so we would have all the different options available and the customer can go. And sometimes they're all enabled and you can choose which one you want. This one doesn't work. Okay, I'll try this one and so forth.
जो इवेंट हो रहा है 4,000 इवेंट्स हैं, राइट? 4,000 इवेंट्स के अंदर आपने टिकटें तो बेच दी, आपने उसके पीछे टेक्नोलॉजी भी बना दी कि यार QR श्योर हो जाएगा, उसके आगे आपको डेटा भी मिल जाएगा, आपने उसको वैलिडेट कर लेना है. अब वो वैलिडेशन जो है वो इवेंट ऑर्गेनाइज़र कर रहा है या हर इवेंट की जाके आपकी टीम कर रही है? और अगर वो इवेंट ऑर्गेनाइज़र कर रहा है या आपकी टीम कर रही है, तो वो मोबाइल ऐप के थ्रू कर रही है? किस तरीके से? आई मीन, हाउ आर देयर पर्टिकुलर डिवाइसेस दैट आर मैनेजिंग ऑल ऑफ दैट? जो मर्चेंट साइड ऑफ, या वो है ना कि वेंडर साइड ऑफ द एंटायर इक्वेशन है, वो किस तरह से मैनेज हो रही है?
So managing the gate at events in Pakistan is a nightmare. Okay, it's difficult. The people will come with their fake tickets at every single event. They will come, they will yell, they will scream, they will swear at you, they will try and break barriers and do all sorts of stuff. And so you need the expertise. And what a lot of people don't understand is the entry is the most important thing for your event. Okay, if you mess that up, one, you're going to lose a shit ton of revenue because you're letting people in for free, essentially. And two, you're going to completely ruin that experience and even the safety of the event itself. So it's very, very important. And some people still get that wrong. So what we try and do is we will go and we will do the scanning and the entire cash sales and everything for you at the gate. So we kind of come in and we take that entire headache away. We'll manage the ticketing. We will help you with the marketing. We will come and verify all the tickets. And so you focus on the event itself, where we will also consult you and try and give you advice on, what you should and shouldn't be doing based on our data and experience. But we will take the entire entrance headache away from you entirely. Right now, that's being done through our desktop application. So we have literally an application on a laptop, not a mobile. And that is for the reasons I explained earlier, with the offline systems and so forth that we've built, because we want that trust maintained. We want to actually be able to properly do the job, And so we've focused on doing it right. Right now we're building out a mobile application, but the whole point is that the mobile application should have the same capability as the desktop application, which is the fact that you should still be able to scan without the need for internet. Once you have everything sorted there, then maybe we'll put it in the hands of the event organizer. But there's still a reputational thing there, because we know that the organizers or their teams or whatever who don't have the experience to manage the gate might not be able to do it as well as our own, and therefore our reputation is also at stake during that time. Because what happens is the customer comes to us and complains, even if they have a bad time at the event and everything at the entrance was smooth. Firstly, a lot of people think that it's our event. A lot of people think it's TicketWala's event for some reason. And the second thing is they say कि भाई हम तो आपके customer हैं, हमने आपसे ticket खरीदी है, ठीक है? And so you are responsible. And so that's just the mentality over here. And because of that, we have to kind of work with that.
नहीं, वो मार्केट प्लेसेस का ज़ाहिर है सारा मसला है ना. वो दराज में अगर आके कोई बंदा आके चूना लगाता है तो दराज को मार पड़ती है. वो अनफॉर्चुनेटली वी स्टिल हैवंट एज अ कंज्यूमर वी हैव टू इवॉल्व इनटू द आइडिया कि मार्केट प्लेसेस एग्जिस्ट करेंगी, रिव्यूज़ एंड उसमें वो यही है कि ऑब्वियसली इन द ग्रैंड स्कीम ऑफ थिंग्स अभी आई कांट सी दैट ऑन द वेबसाइट, बट इन द ग्रैंड स्कीम ऑफ थिंग्स द ऑर्गेनाइजर्स नीड टू बी लेबल्ड प्रॉपर्ली, दे नीड टू बी रिव्यूड ताकि लोग उसके हिसाब से वो कर लें. You mentioned the desktop app, right? So, अब let's say एक event हो रहा है, उसमें 5 lanes हैं, 5 different laptops पड़े हुए हैं.
Yeah.
और how are they scanning? So, are they sitting there and adding a code, or do they have like a
QR scanner?
A QR scanner. Okay. And so eventually you're basically saying कि यार हम इसको मोबाइल ऐप पे ले जाएंगे तो वो जो डायरेक्ट मशीन्स होती हैं, QR किया, उसी वक्त उसने कहा जी ओके और जाने दिया. I do think it's not that. It shouldn't be that complicated to convert that into mobile, and I would rather कि वो है. But क्योंकि अभी मैं इसमें जो मुझे क्यूरियोसिटी हो रही है वो ये हो रही है कि there's an operational lag here. कराची में करना बड़ा आसान है, टीम है, अपनी टीम बिछाई हुई है, 4000 में से 2000 कराची में इवेंट्स हो गए, ईजी है. बट जब मैं इसको लाहौर इस्लामाबाद में करता हूँ, अब मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, मैं बंदा फ्लाई करवा रहा हूँ, मैं सारी जो बल्कि इक्विपमेंट है उसको मैं भिजवा रहा हूँ. दैट्स there's an inefficiency there. वर्सेस और या मैं ऑल्टरनेटिव ये कह रहा हूँ लाहौर की एक टीम अब मैंने बना दी, इस्लामाबाद की टीम बना दी, बट दैन इस्लामाबाद के इवेंट्स 6 तारीख को एक इवेंट है और 12 तारीख को एक इवेंट है, तो दरमियान में वो टीम वेस्ट हो रही है, इनएफिशिएंट है. तो आई एम क्यूरियस के हाउ डू यू प्लान ऑन, व्हाट्स द करंट लॉजिस्टिकल मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम फॉर दिस, बिकॉज you're managing the entry entirely at this point in time.
Yeah, so not for every event, but for the larger events.
Okay.
Yeah, for the larger events.
So the smaller events के अंदर वो क्या है कि the organizers themselves can get the same desktop app and you can just guide them कि यार आप इसको manage कर लें.
So for the most part, they have a sheet. They have an Excel sheet.
Okay.
And so they verify either from there or, we'll send a smaller team to verify. It really depends on the deal that we make and so forth. But in most cases, they want you to come and handle it now because they know that they can just outsource that process to you. Where you asked about how we're managing the operations. So it used to be that, our team used to go from Karachi to Lahore, and so they would then be managing the operations. But even in Karachi, even in Lahore, we're a very lean team, but we're very, very small. So these people that are actually doing the scanning at the gate, they're not full-time employees. We pay them as well as our full-time employees a certain amount for every single event that they actually attend. Okay, so even if one of
जैसा
our
वो बाउंसर्स वगैरह होते हैं इवेंट्स के ऊपर कि यार आपने पर इवेंट के हिसाब से वो डे का उसने आके किया, पैसे कैश लिया और निकल गया वो आगे.
Exactly. So we've given them all training, and now we have teams in all the different cities, and those people are not on our payroll, but we will always have obviously someone from our core team that will be at that event and obviously to manage the entire operations. For all those other people, they're being paid per day ke hisab se, and they're all experienced in what we do now.
You spoke about the deal, right? So what's the business model here? मैं अभी इस conversation से पहले देख रहा था on the event on the website there is an Adil Hashmi event happening. It's a workshop of sorts. 20,000 रुपए का उसका वो event का ticket है. और जब आप उसको ख़रीद के चेकआउट की तरफ जाते हैं तो वो आपसे 89-96 रुपीज़ समथिंग लाइक दैट. सो मुझे नंबर समझ नहीं आया बिकॉज वो 1% भी अगर मैं निकालूँ तो 200 रुपीज़ तो निकलना चाहिए. सो इज़ इट लाइक अ फ्लैट फी दैट यू चार्जिंग एंड दैट्स गोइंग, क्योंकि वो कस्टमर के उस पर ऐड हो रहा है. इज़ दैट द entire extent of what you're making? Yeah, is that basically what the customer is paying for this experience? But beyond that, there is a deal with the partners, whoever's doing the event. Okay, X amount of X percentage of your ticket we'll keep. And is that then divided or upgraded based on the services that are being offered? So कुछ events हैं, 50 लोगों का एक छोटी सी workshop है, उसको आपने list भेज दी, you're done. 500 लोगों का या 1000 लोगों का एक कॉन्सर्ट है, उस पर अब आपका बंदा जाना है और उसने जाके मैनेज करना है, उसकी ज़ाहिर एक कॉस्ट एसोसिएटेड है. वो 90 रुपये पर टिकट पे नहीं निकल सकती, क्योंकि 90 पे मैं 1000 टिकट भी निकालूंगा तो 90,000 रुपया आएगा, वो तो महीने की तनख्वाह नहीं निकालेगा. सो हाउ's the economics happening here?
So we have dual-sided commissions or earnings as such. So we take 10 to 15% right now, more so 15% from the event organizer. So let's say if they have sales of $1 million, we will cut our 15%, ठीक है, 150,000. We will cut the tax on our commission amount and we will transfer them the remainder. ठीक है. What you see being added on top of the ticket price, the platform fee, that again is, let's say that goes to us to cover our costs and whatnot, right? So because just the 10 to 15%, we weren't making enough based on it, right? We want to make this a profitable company. And so we had to do dual side. You couldn't put so much pressure on the event organizer, and so we had to kind of split it up. Now that's per order. That's 89 rupees per order, not per ticket. So if you buy 20 tickets in the same order, it'll still be 89 rupees. Tickets a flat fee, like you go on Food Panda and there's a platform fee.
Yeah. Platform fee. Yeah.
Then there's the 4.1%, I think, of the payment processing fee. ठीक है. That used to be slightly lower, and that used to be added directly on, let's say, PayFast or PayPro side or whatever it was. But recently, all these taxes and all this have been incorporated, and so we renegotiated deals, and we tried to make it as reasonable as possible. It's always been passed on to the consumer, the ticket purchaser, but those are basically card fees, bank transfer fees, taxes, that kind of stuff. And so if we took that hit internally, I mean, you'd get screwed because that's like 50% of your earnings, so that gets passed on to the customer.
That's an interesting point because ये जो बैंक ट्रांसफ़र फीस है ना, ये क्योंकि अगेन उसके आपके चेकआउट पे नज़र आ रहा था, मोस्ट पीपल डू नॉट शो दैट फीस. तो पाकिस्तान में लोगों को, कस्टमर्स को आइडिया भी नहीं है कि देयर इज़ अ MDR फ़ी जो कि उसमें लग रही होती है. जाहिर है, आई एम श्योर इसके ऊपर लोगों का सवाल आता होगा कि यार ये क्या है, ये क्यों एक्स्ट्रा फ़ी देनी पड़ रही है मुझे, मैं वॉक करके जाके जब दुकान से लेता तब तो नहीं पड़ती थी. वो मसला उसके अंदर ये है कि जब आप रेजर थिन मार्जिन्स के ऊपर ऑपरेट कर रहे होते हैं ना, पाकिस्तान में, आई मीन 4,000 रुपये का या 2,000 रुपये का एक टिकट फॉर अ कॉन्सर्ट. मैं इनफैक्ट कल जा रहा हूँ, एक सिंपल प्लान एक बैंड हुआ करता होता था मेरी जवानी के टाइम पे, तो वो अपना टूर फिर से कर रहे हैं, तो मेरे लिए बड़ा वो था. तो मैंने उनका जो बेस टिकट लिया ना, जनरल एडमिशन खड़े होके वो करने वाला, वो $90 का है, राइट. सो दैट्स 24,000 रुपया बनता है. उसके ऊपर मार्जिन और 2,000 रुपये के मार्जिन के ऊपर, जिसमें आपने उसको भी पे करना है, वेन्यू को भी करना है, सारा कुछ करना है. वो मार्जिन इतना थोड़ा है कि अगर आप ये भी एब्जॉर्ब करना शुरू कर दें और टैक्सेस भी एब्जॉर्ब करना शुरू कर दें और सारा कुछ कर लें, तो इट डजंट मेक अ लॉट ऑफ सेंस. बट आई एम क्यूरियस अगेन कि जो 10-15% आपने बोला कि मैं ले रहा हूँ, वो 10-15% इंक्लूड्स योर एंट्री मैनेजमेंट, या इज़ देयर अ स्टैकर ऑन टॉप ऑफ दैट कि अच्छा जी ये अमाउंट है जो कि हम आपकी टिकटिंग मैनेजमेंट की है, उसके बाद फिर अब आपको सर्विसेज चाहिए, आप कहते हैं कि जी मुझे और इसमें जाहिर है बहुत सारे ऐसे लोग भी होंगे, स्कूल के इवेंट्स होते हैं, बच्चे कराते हैं. हमें, मुझे याद है मैं हाई स्कूल में था तो यार हमने कॉन्सर्ट करवाना था. अब वो करवाना तो था, बट उसमें जो होता है ना, वो गेट पे फड्डा, वो एक थिंग है पाकिस्तान में कि गेट पे फड्डा होना है. वो कुछ बॉयज़ हैं जिन बॉयज़ ने जाके ना उस दिन मुफ्त में आना है और उन्होंने घुसने की कोशिश करनी है. अब वो हर बैच ने हर साल एक नया कॉन्सर्ट कराना है, नए ऑर्गेनाइजर्स हैं, नया फड्डा होना है और एक खप होनी है और फिर हेड मिस्ट्रेस ने आना है. वाई कैन दिस नॉट बी मैनेज्ड बाय अ प्रोफेशनल who knows exactly what to do, because they know कि यार ये हर दफ़ा ऐसे होना है, तो इसको डिज़ाइन ऐसे करो कि उन लड़कों के पास अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं आओ कि गेट तक भी पहुंच सकें.
Exactly.
इस तरह की जो रेंज ऑफ सर्विसेज हैं, देन आर दोज like a cart thing कि okay, add to cart, ये भी कर दो, ये भी कर दो, ये भी कर दो, और इसकी इतनी फीस है, इसकी इतनी फीस है, इसकी इतनी फीस है.
It's completely personalized. Okay, so it's not like, oh, we have a fixed price per person or fixed price for this. Even when we do the gate management, it's not a fixed amount that gets added on top of your commission. We say that, look, this is the minimum that we need to meet in commissions. Okay, so let's, for the ease of calculation, suppose ke we say 1 million rupees ki sale hai, ठीक है, टोटल हमारा 10% कमीशन है, 100,000 पे 15% टैक्स लगता है, 15%, ठीक है. एंड वी से कि यार हमारा जो मिनिमम फीस है गेट का, ठीक है, कि भाई इतना हमें मीट करना ही कर रहा है, वो 2 लाख है, ठीक है. सो व्हाट्स गोना हैपन इन दैट केस इज कि 100,000 तो वी मेड ऑन कमीशंस, ठीक है, 200,000 इज द मिनिमम. सो वी आर गोना चार्ज यू 200,000, नॉट 100,000, नॉट 200 प्लस 100, 200 हम रखेंगे. अब अगर आपका सेल 3 मिलियन का होता है और हमारी कमीशन 3 लाख बन रही है, तो देन वी आर गोना टेक फ्रॉम यू 3 लाख, नॉट 2 लाख प्लस 3 लाख. So the minimum we have to meet is this much to cover our cost, and that obviously depends on the size of the event and so forth. And so we personalize that, and then we say कि यार उसके ऊपर जो बने हमारा, मगर इसके नीचे हम नहीं देंगे. You know, and that's how we essentially model it. So it becomes easier for them as well. They know कि यार इतना हमें देना ही देना है, बाकी जो है, you know, if we do well, they do well, and so forth. And so it incentivizes us also to get the maximum reach for that event and get the more sales and so forth.
अच्छा, मुझे बताएं कि जो मुझे वेबसाइट से समझ आया, बिकॉज आर्टिस्ट इवेंट तो है ही है, उसके ऊपर अब लिस्ट योर इवेंट भी आ रहा है. आई एम नॉट श्योर इफ दैट इज़ लाइव और नॉट. उस पर इवेंट मैनेजमेंट भी आ रही है, तो जो आपका दूसरा विंग है कि आपने कहा यार मेरे पास एक्सपर्टीज़ है, डेटा है, तो मैं आपका पूरा इवेंट ही मैनेज कर देता हूँ जब अगर आपको नहीं समझ आ रही. एंड देन देयर इज़ आर्टिस्ट बुकिंग्स एज वेल कि भाई मैंने आपसे नहीं टिकटिंग करवानी, कुछ भी नहीं कराना, मैंने अपने स्कूल का इवेंट है, उस पर मेरे स्कूल की टिकटें बिकनी हैं मुझे, लेकिन आर्टिस्ट चाहिए. और पुराने वक्त में यही होता था कि आप जाते थे जाके यू नो उसको, उस वक्त तो खैर इंस्टाग्राम वगैरह भी नहीं था, मैं 2008-9 की बात कर रहा हूँ, तो वो उस टाइम के ऊपर कोई जानने वाला होता था, कोई बैच में कोई लड़का होगा, वो यार वो मैं आतिफ असलम के मैनेजर को जानता हूँ, मैं कर लूँगा, राइट.
उस टाइम पे नहीं,
ऑब्वियसली
यही हो रहा था.
अभी आई वुड हैव अज्यूम्ड कि वो प्रॉब्ली डीएम करते होंगे इंस्टाग्राम के ऊपर जाके कि यार ब्रदर वांट टू डू कॉन्सर्ट काइंडली, बट वो या मैनेजर का नंबर लिखा होता है. बट irrespective, you know, there's that aspect as well. Are you guys managing artists as well?
Yeah.
Or are you like basically creating like a, अच्छा जी, we are a connector, जो कि हमारे पास चूँकि events वाले हैं, हमारे पास probably managers भी हैं, तो ecosystem again exist करता है, तो we'll just help you do that.
So what we realized was, so yes, we manage our own artists. We have 8 artists under our management, including, let's say, Hasan, Rahim, Tahaji, Jani, Fuzik, a few others as well, right? And we also can book any artist for you locally or internationally. And it's a trusted service for people, right? Especially for international players that want to book artists, you know, to export. For them, working with us is great because they don't trust those random people, right? So they know that this is an established entity, and so we can go through them and we're safe, you know? So we do that for you, whether that's a commercial show, a corporate show, a wedding, whatever it is, we can book your artist. We've tried to make it easy for you by creating a booking portal on the website. So if you actually go on the artist booking section, there's a list of all the different artists, at least, that we've done the ticketing for in Pakistan for the most part. We've done that for multitude of reasons, right? So 2 basic ones would be, one, it's easier for the customer to come and see, okay, these are all the different options and I can book any one of these. And it sends us a lead, we'll call you, we'll understand what you want. Because even the artist booking side is still personalized. It depends. How many hours do you want it for? Which city is it for? And so forth, right? Is travel and accommodation included or not included and so forth. So we do that. So some of our processes are still relatively manual, but that's not because we can't bring tech into it. You know, we've done the basic tech for it. It's because the market isn't necessarily ready for it yet. They still expect it. The other thing is, we discussed earlier about data, right? So we have pioneered the data set of entertainment in Pakistan, whether that's through research or whether that's through actually having done the events themselves. So I'll give you an example. So now, another reason for why we've created these artists on the platform in the booking portal is because we can tag those artists into each event. So when you click an event, you'll actually see there's a section for lineup, and you'll see all the different artists that are performing in that lineup. If you click there, or even if you click on through the artist booking page, it opens an artist specific page. Uske upar, you can even listen to some of their music. So you can, for the artist booking, you got the Spotify integrated, the SoundCloud integrated, whatnot. And you can see which past events and upcoming events that those artists have. So you can track those people. But what that also allows us to do is track the data and to actually be able to make judgments based on that data, right? So for example, now I have your date of birth and your gender when you sign up to TicketWala, and let's say your city. When you place your order, I now know the time and date of when you place the order, and I can minus it and I can get your age at the time of placing the order. Now, since you've purchased a ticket for a Hasan Rahim concert in Karachi, and I know all the details of that event, for example, the venue, I know the city, I know which artists are performing, who are the sponsors in that event. So we've done a similar thing with sponsors as well. We can put it within the event page. And I have your gender and everything. I can actually see, okay, what is the average fan base age for females at a Hasan Rahim concert in Karachi at this ticket price or whatever, right? And so you can make those database decisions. And so we've tried to incorporate that data into all the different things that we do, even though we're still, in the nascency stage that we're starting to clean up that data and whatever right now. But that is something that we're very, very focused on moving forward, because that data is what allows us to help our event organizers and also corporates and brands, right? Connecting them with funding, and also allowing us to expand as an industry in Pakistan, because you're able to advise कि यार आप ये करें, based on this, we know this works. So,
ये जो टेक्नोलॉजी आपकी सारी इन हाउस बन रही है, या do you have a third party vendor जो कि आपको based on your requirements build करता है?
It's in house.
Completely अब आपकी अपनी टीम है?
Yeah, we have one guy.
You have
one
guy to
one part-time developer. He's a cheetah. He does everything.
Why didn't you double down on the tech team?
We didn't have money.
In your opinion,
we didn't have any money. I told you when COVID hit, we had 150,000 rupees left. We scaled from there without adding any more money, and so we were always short on cash. And we've only just become profitable in this last financial year, really. And so it's been tough. You have to stay lean. You have to make the right decisions. Every decision needs to make money. And we've always been focused on profitability. I don't think we've ever operated like any of the other startups, especially the funded startups in the country, even though we've been up against them sometimes, right? It's always been about, it needs to make sense as a business as well as an industry.
Why didn't you go for fundraising earlier?
It's not that we didn't
जाहिर
go
एक प्रॉब्लम
for
स्टेटमेंट है ना कि यार मेरे पास पैसा नहीं है, मेरी टेक्नोलॉजी वो है. अब अगर वो पैसा हो जाए और मेरे पास टेक्नोलॉजी आ जाए, तो टेक्नोलॉजी के अंदर कुछ चीज़ें मैं बहुत ईजिली स्ट्रीमलाइन कर सकता हूँ. देयर आर वेरी क्लियर बेसिक एज अ टेक्नोलॉजी पर्सन मुझे बहुत बेसिक चीज़ें नज़र आ रही हैं जो कि इट मेक्स अ लॉट ऑफ सेंस. क्या वो जो बेचारा लगा हुआ है उसके हिसाब से उसने बहुत जेन्युइन चीज़ बना दी है ऑलरेडी. If I had the money, I would get like a team of 5-7 people, and they then would be able to create all the possible nodes in a much more sort of intuitive way with the right UX design as well. But obviously उसके लिए चिकन एंड एग है. पैसा होगा तो टेक्नोलॉजी आएगी तो ग्रोथ आएगी, एंड ग्रोथ से पैसा आएगा. तो उस स्टॉप गैप के लिए I can go to an investor. Was that funding just not available, do you think, because वो 2022 a crash आया and so on? Yeah, were you not interested in that funding previously at all?
both. Okay, so I think we did initially try and raise some money, and we were just very, very early at that time. The industry seemed non-existent to most people, and so people and investors just thought we were idiots for doing ticketing in events in Pakistan. Also because we were hell-bent on the fact that we are not going to do travel. We are going to do entertainment and entertainment only. And nobody else
और वो
could
सारा
see
पैसा
that
आपका
vision.
ट्रैवल के अंदर है, क्योंकि वो तो सुबह शाम का आपका टिकट है.
Yeah, and no one else could see that vision. And you had the other ticketing platforms like your BookMe's and stuff, which were doing it all and already had a lot of funding. And so you were playing a very hard game, and the odds were not in your favor at all. And then COVID hit, and it made it even harder. And then there was the crash, you know, and again, funding was dry, and it never seemed like the right time as well. So we were also able to operate without it, you know, like we made it work. And so as long as you can keep making it work, like even today, like we don't need funding now to keep going. We've already established ourselves as market leaders, and whatever we want to do, we can do with our own money. Funding makes it easier, and we are raising funding now because there's a lot of things that we want to do that will help us scale much, much faster, like you said. But it wasn't necessarily the time earlier. And also, I feel that in a lot of cases, it's easier to raise before you have any revenue. So pre-revenue might actually be easier to raise, from what I've understood, because you're talking on hypothetical financial projections, right? Yeah. And now once you've got that first dollar in, now it's like, oh, but you've only done this much, you know.
10 रुपए आए हैं तो 10 करोड़ रुपए क्यों नहीं आए?
Yeah, it's like, भाई 10 रुपए भी नहीं थे हमारे पास, कैसे करना, you know. So I mean, literally this entire UI UX, like I made it myself on Canva, you know. So we've really just stayed as lean as possible, and we're like, where we can save, we will save.
No, that makes sense. Look, one can critique you all they want, right? क्योंकि वो स्टार्टअप का पहला दिमाग ये आता है कि टेक, तो और मसला भी मेरा ख्याल है बहुत सारे स्टार्टअप्स का ये मसला है कि वो टेक ही में रहे हैं, वो फिर बिजनेस नहीं कर सके, धंधा नहीं कर सके. एंड सो I'll say this, the tech is based on what the part-time resource is great, but tech on the scale that you're operating, most people will not realize the scale because the tech is not there yet. And जो डेस्कटॉप ऐप है उसको मोबाइल ऐप में ले जाकर उसके लिए डिवाइसेस मंगवाना, it's a 1 month game that can completely reimagine your operations. 100%. But it requires money.
Yeah.
Having said that, I do believe I think there was a genius to, for whatever reason, whether that was because of strategy or because you were forced to do it, in becoming an integral part of the ecosystem first and making sure कि यार I'm not just, जो बुकमी का मसला है, बुकमी की टेक बहुत नेक्स्ट लेवल है, you know, फैजान has done a phenomenal job, but बुकमी का इंटरेस्ट नहीं है एंटरटेनमेंट में, so they were not able to provide the जो लास्ट माइल एक्सपीरियंस है ना ऑफ एंटरटेनमेंट, वो फिर वो उसमें रह गए ट्रैवल के अंदर. एंड इन अ लॉट ऑफ वेज आई फील लाइक कि जो करीम ऊबर स्टोरी है वो भी यही है कि यार आपने ऊबर की ऐप थी बहुत ज़बरदस्त थी, करीम ने दुकानें खोली, उनको पता था कि कस्टमर ने दुकानों में ही आना है आखिर में, और जब तक वो दुकान में नहीं आएंगे वो ऐप पे साइन अप प्रॉपर्ली नहीं कर सकेंगे. सो आपको लोकलाइज एट द एंड ऑफ द डे करना पड़ता है. नाउ यू आर पोजिशन्ड वेरी वेल, टेक कैन बी बिल्ट इन अ मंथ. It's really being part of that ecosystem. So personally, I have a lot of confidence in this going in the right direction.
Thank you.
My question though now here on forth is beyond, you know, TicketWala as a platform, and more on the general sort of industry and ecosystem. And the reason why I asked this is, again, मैंने start पे भी ये बात mention की कि बहुत सारी अनफॉर्चुनेटली पाकिस्तान में, फॉर्चुनेट और अनफॉर्चुनेट, फॉर्चुनेट इस वजह से बिकॉज जो सबसे अर्ली होता है फिर वो उतना ही ज़्यादा ग्रो करता है ओवर 20-30 ईयर पीरियड. अनफॉर्चुनेट बिकॉज उसको जो मार खानी पड़ती है ना, जो ख्वारी होती है, वो कहता है यार फिर यू नो ना ही करूँ, मैं एक प्रॉब्लम है मैं उसको सॉल्व करूँ. वो इनोवेशन का 10% के बजाय वो 90% ऑपरेशंस में लगा देता है. बट मसला पाकिस्तान में ये है कि हर इंडस्ट्री के अंदर you can create an addressable market, funny numbers, by saying कि इतनी % यूथ है, इतना % मिडिल क्लास है, उसको इस तरह मल्टीप्लाई करें तो ऐसा हो जाएगा, तो दुनिया बदल जाएगी. बट जब आप उसको एक्चुअल कन्वर्ट करने में जाते हैं तो एवरी पर्सन हैज़ टू रियली गेट दोज पीपल मोबिलाइज्ड, टीच दैम कि दुनिया में ऐसा होता है, आप भी ऐसा कर सकते हो, इवेंचुअली मेक दैम कस्टमर्स एंड देन इवेंचुअली टेक अ चंक आउट ऑफ इट, राइट? सो व्हेन you go and you, let's say, sell tickets, you're getting 1% out of it, or you know, बहुत थोड़ा सा revenue out of it. Event managers या events वाले पैसे बना रहे हैं उसके ऊपर, artist पैसा बना रहा है, वो सारा कुछ है. लेकिन the onus of responsibility generally will fall on you because you are the ecosystem builder in this case.
Yeah.
Which is the hard part. But I do believe कि उसका eventually आपको reward भी मिलेगा if you're able to crack that. Now, when we talk about this particular industry, इस वक्त अगर मैं आपसे ये बोलूँ ना कि यार जितने भी इवेंट्स हैं उन इवेंट्स को हम डिजिटाइज कर लें, तो मुझे लगता है वो तो मजाक है. वो तो यानी कि यू नो आपके आर्टिस्ट हैं, हसन रहीम है, ये है, वो KLI में घूमता है, वो मोस्टली जो है ना वो ये करेगा, वो मेजॉरिटी उसके इवेंट स्कूल के होंगे क्योंकि आता ही वो है। साल में वो 3-4 दफ़ा किसी फेस्टिवल में किसी उसमें कभी इस्लामाबाद आ जाएगा, कभी लाहौर आ जाएगा, कभी कराची आ जाएगा। फिर प्रिंसिपल पॉपुलेशन तो आपकी जीटी रोड के लेफ्ट राइट है। वो क्या वो मुल्तान जा रहा है, क्या वो फैसलाबाद जा रहा है, क्या वो बाकी शहरों में जा रहा है, क्या टूर्स हो रहे हैं, क्या एक्सपीरियंस डिज़ाइन हो रहा है, क्या वो इस्लामाबाद में जब 6 कॉन्सर्ट्स कर रहा है साल के, तो वो 6 के 6 में तो एक ही चीज़ होगी ना एक गाने कितने आ रहे हैं उसके, कि वो उसके हिसाब से आके वो कर रहा है। अनफॉर्चुनेटली जो टोटल पाए है वो इतना छोटा है कि उसको आप जितना भी डिजिटाइज कर लें उससे ₹1.5 का फ़र्क नहीं पड़ेगा, until and unless हम ये कहते हैं कि यार नहीं, लेट्स इंक्रीज द पाए radically and then see what's built on top of that, because that is where that 1% or very tiny fees can also create a big impact. उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट के अंदर आई एम क्यूरियस टू नो, जो आप लोगों का इस वक्त आप एक तो कैसा देख रहे हैं स्पेस को, उस स्पेस के अंदर, बिकॉज you've been part of these events, you've been seeing these events happen, and you manage हसन का particularly एक टूर मुझे याद है, मैंने बाहर से साइड से देखा था, बट उसके अंदर they did at least some aspect of experience design, उसके अंदर एनिमेशंस हुई हुई थी, उसमें स्क्रीन्स इंटीग्रेटेड थी, उसमें वो सारा कुछ था, जो कि मेजॉरिटी जो है ना वो यही होता है कि एक सिंगर आता है, गिटार के साथ गाता है, निकल जाता है, थैंक यू, अल्लाह हाफिज़। what's your thought on कि यार पाकिस्तान में ना जो इवेंट्स हैं उनको बहुत हम बेहतर कर सकते हैं और उसको हम बहुत ज़्यादा वैल्यू निकाल सकते हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा लोगों को लेकर आ सकते हैं, लेकिन ये XYZ चीज़ें अगर हो जाएं वो जो कि नहीं हो रही, हाउ डू यू सी द स्पेस?
So I'm going to break this into a couple of different parts, right? So one as an industry and the market size and how to expand the pie, and the other one is just artists in general. Okay, so if we look at the industry right now, majority of the events that are happening, and I'm focusing on events, not entertainment. Entertainment in Pakistan is a massive, massive market, right? In entertainment, you have events, you have grounds, you have cinemas, theme parks, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Events mein jo hai, majority are happening, like you said, Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad. And majority of those events are also happening defense, Clifton, वगैरह वगैरह, ठीक है. So one, you can expand within the same cities because there's so many more people that you can tap into and just different areas and different price points and different artists, right? So that is something that needs to happen. The other thing is tier 2 cities haven't actually opened up at all really. So events are happening, they're not e-ticketed, and the major artists themselves are not really performing in those events. They're very different, right? So you have like these Eid markets and that kind of stuff that happens, right? So it's about opening up the other cities more than anything. And that's something that we're very focused on right now, whether that be our own events or whether that be through collaborating with event organizers or even just advising event organizers कि आप यहाँ जाके event करें. Because the market is there. Okay, if you see one of these artists when they go to TicketWala and they perform at a university, there's no space to walk. So the demand is there, the money is there, it's just the events are not happening. People are scared to go outside of their comfort zone, and that's why they continue to do it within Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, and because the risk appetite is not necessarily there like it should be. And neither is the funding. Okay? So events themselves are inherently risky. They're very, very risky. Okay? You can lose a lot of money. Especially artists are paid a lot, venues are paid a lot, and there's barely any venues to begin with, and it's the same handful of artists that are performing at all the different events, okay? And the event organizers also don't have any external funding because brands are not sponsoring the events, and they're not doing it based on any ROI. They're doing it based off just connections, okay? So because of that, these event organizers are not necessarily willing to take that risk doing it in a different city, because if they do and it doesn't go well, they're blown out of the water. So it's about opening that up. Now we are going to probably be doing our own events in those cities to open those markets up as well. That's definitely in our plan over the next few months, and it's something we're already working on actively. It's a copycat market, right? So when you have one market that does well, let's say you have a pop-up market like a Commons or a Mashin or a Locate or whatever, there's so many others that come and copy that entire thing, that entire event. They'll change the design and whatnot, but the basic shopping plus food, right, is what's replicated in different markets and different whatever. You do something like that in one of those cities, I guarantee it's going to do so well. Please, this is not financial advice, but AWS will probably do really, really well, and that is going to just exponentially just open up those markets. When we started doing TicketWala and even ticketing, there was probably 100 e-ticketed events in the year, roughly, arguably less than that, and now we do way more than that every single month. And so the market has just grown, and it's grown primarily because of this, because people have a platform now where they can, one, distribute, and also just because they're opening up to different types of events that are happening. It's not just the concerts happening anymore, your comedy shows, your theater, there's automotive events, there is workshops like sound baths and all sorts of different things that are happening in the niche stuff, right? So that stuff is going to open. It's those cities, the tier 2 cities, are still way behind Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, but they will eventually open up. And so we need to open those up. That's one thing. The other thing is, you mentioned Hasan Rahim's tour. That's Hasan Rahim's Nautanki tour, which was like its first audio-visual experience of Pakistan, and also now his unfiltered shows. All of these, both unfiltered and Nautanki tour, are events executed by TicketWala. So these were our own IPs that we worked with on Hasan. Hasan, like I mentioned, is under our management, and so we've worked with them to try and up the quality of events in Pakistan, right? Like you said, there wasn't anything happening like that. Just generally, you put a person on a stage and that's about it. People don't necessarily think about the quality of the event, and that matters a lot. What's going to end up happening in the next few years, because the same artists are performing at the same venues and the same type of show over and over and over again, and there's not a lack of content. They're putting out tons of new music, and there's new people exploding every day, but there will come a time of saturation. We're not there yet. Right now, we're still exponentially growing. Okay? So I say exponentially growing. Simple example is the fact that if pop-up markets, shopping plus food, no artist, okay, in Ramzan, if I said that there was going to be 4 or 5 of these happening all in phase 8 within walking distance of each other, you would say all of them are going to lose sales. This Ramzan was a record year for us. There was, I think, 4 or 5 different pop-up markets, same format, okay, literally walking distance from each other. Every single one of them did record sales and like blasted through their old records. That's showing me that the market itself is growing, those IPs as events are growing, and TicketWala is growing as well. So we're still in that exponential phase of growth, and that's probably going to last another couple of years. But eventually, it's going to start to slump, and you're going to reach some sort of saturation. What you need to do to avoid that saturation is to, find differentiation in what you do. And that could be from the quality of the event that you produce, right? So every Hasan Rahim concert is not the same, or it shouldn't be, There should be an experience to attend. Not all have to be, but some should be that premium experience. And when you start doing that kind of stuff and actually go out there with your ideas and step out of the box a little bit and step out of, I just want to make my little bit of money on this event and that's it, that's when the actual gains are going to come, both for the event organizer and for the industry as a whole, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is our focus is also on artists generally, not just within Pakistan, but also exporting our artists. So we work with Sony, we work with Universal, we work with Mass Appeal, D30s, a lot of these big record labels. And so we work on getting our artists, with these record labels, selling their albums or IPs or whatever it is, and also, helping them with these tours, whether that's locally like the Nautanki tour or Unfiltered tour, or globally, right? So Hasan's done an entire world tour, for example, and sold out shows. And so it's about getting them that international exposure. Bringing, obviously, international talent to Pakistan is a whole other ball game, and that is also very much needed, and that's, I guarantee it's going to happen within the next year. Okay, and a lot of things are planned. I can't say what exactly, but a lot is planned. The problem there comes with the lack of venues and infrastructure in Pakistan. So security is a big aspect, and also you don't have a single good venue, like a really good venue for a proper show, for international scale show.
आई थिंक इंटरनेशनली आई वुड आर्ग्यू बहुत सारे मसाइल हैं, और उसके अंदर एक डिमांड क्रिएशन का बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है कि यार जो इकोनॉमिक्स है ना, दे मेक सेंस. आई मीन कोल्ड प्ले इंडिया जाता है तो वो एक स्टेडियम में जब तक 40,000 बंदा नहीं आता ना तो उसकी कॉस्ट पूरी नहीं होती। मतलब कॉस्ट क्या, उसका वो जो वारा जो खाता है ना वो उसका पूरा नहीं होता। अब 40,000 लोग पाकिस्तान में, हम 5,000 नहीं कर पाते यार। 5,000 मुझे याद है वो लाहौर में एक इवेंट हुआ था जिस पे वो ब्रेकिंग न्यूज़ लगी हुई थी, पूरा कनाल चौक हुआ था बिकॉज वो जी 3-4 हज़ार लोग आ गए और गाड़ियाँ चौक हो गई। तो हमारे यहाँ तो अनफॉर्चुनेटली वी डोंट हैव द इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, but also we do not just infrastructure in terms of hard infrastructure, we haven't managed events on that scale. अगर आपका 30-40 हज़ार बंदे का इवेंट होता है तो सिटी एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इन्वॉल्व होती है, पूरा का पूरा शहर मूव हो रहा होता है। टू बी ऑनेस्ट, जब दुबई में कोई इवेंट होता है तो आपको पूरा शहर एक उसमें होता है, और उसमें जाहिर है there's a lot of business that goes into that as well. So generally cities are more conducive. पाकिस्तान में तो सिटी वाला भी कहता है क्यों कर रहे हो इवेंट, क्यों खप डाल रहे हो मेरे सर पे। हालांकि cities generally tend to, it's a business activity when events are happening. So for me, it's not, I mean, people do jump the gun and say, okay, why can't we have, like, let's say XYZ international artist come to Pakistan? I think you're missing the point. The point should be, how do I get Hasan Rahim from 500 people concerts to one 20,000 person concert? And he does that once a year, rather than पूरे साल वो जो है ना छोटे परफॉर्म कर ही जा रहे। तो अगेन जो आपने इनिशियल बात बोली, दो चीज़ों में मैं ब्रेक करूँगा ना। पहले तो मैं कहूँगा कि यार नई डिमांड क्रिएट करें जाके बाकी शहरों के अंदर, जीटी रोड के अराउंड करें, हैदराबाद पकड़ें और इस तरह के शहर पकड़ें और उसमें निकालें। बट इवन KLI के अंदर यार 5 इवेंट्स क्यों हो रहे हैं, लाइक, और 500 के, वाई कांट वी डू लाइक अ बिग 5,000 पीपल इवेंट? एंड क्योंकि वो इकोनॉमी ऑफ स्केल में बहुत सारी चीज़ों की कॉस्ट एक रहेगी, प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी देन उसके हिसाब से निकलती है, एंड एवरीबडी मेक्स मनी। तो दूसरी आपने बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग बात बोली, वो ये कि आई फील लाइक इन अ लो ट्रस्ट सोसाइटी ना, पाकिस्तान, डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज जनरली आर लो ट्रस्ट सोसाइटीज़, तो उस पर होता ये है कि पाए तब तक नहीं बढ़ सकता जब तक कोलैबोरेशन ना हो, ठीक है, और कोलैबोरेशन तब तक नहीं हो सकती जब तक ट्रस्ट ना हो। और उसमें मसला ये आता है कि टिकटिंग प्लेटफॉर्म कहता है कि यार इवेंट अच्छा हो बुरा हो, मैं उसके खप में नहीं घुस सकता, तो मैं बस टिकट बेचूंगा, इवेंट का सर का दर्द है। इवेंट वाला कहता है कि यार परफॉर्मेंस अच्छी हो बुरी हो, मैं उसकी सर का दर्द नहीं ले सकता, मैं मेरे इवेंट कराना है, ये आर्टिस्ट का वो है। आर्टिस्ट कहता है यार 500 बंदे के लिए मैं इवेंट करा रहा हूँ, हो सकता है 50-50 है, हो सकता है आखिर में 200 बंदा आए, हो सकता है फड्डा हो जाए, हो सकता है खप हो जाए, बस जाता हूँ, गाने बजाता हूँ, आ जाता हूँ। इट्स नॉट अ वेरी मेमोरेबल मोमेंट फॉर मी, अनलेस कोई बहुत ही कोई कोक स्टूडियो का इवेंट आ रहा है, राइट? And so everybody is doing their own thing and nobody is actually benefiting, right? Because actual में collaboration में everybody benefits. The artist gets money, yes, but artist gets a lot of brand equity from a large, well-managed event, and so on and so forth. TicketWala, this, that, everybody gets that. For me, I think the way to undercut that is to actually aggregate and then be able to पार्टनर विद एवरीबडी। आर्टिस्ट भाई तुम मेरे से आके 50 लाख रुपया ना लो, तुम आओ और आके मेरे साथ लेट्स प्लान अ बिग इवेंट जिसके ऊपर अगर काम अच्छा चले तो तुम करोड़ रुपया निकाल सको, राइट? दैट्स बेसिकली द बाय इन दैट द कंपैरेटिवली हायर रिस्क हायर रिटर्न दैट यू गिविंग। काम अच्छा नहीं चलेगा, तुम्हारा 20 लाख निकल आएगा, क्या ही फ़र्क पड़ता है? Because of the fact that you are uniquely positioned to at the center of a lot of different nodes, that you actually have the opportunity to bring a lot of these stakeholders on the table and they say, "Okay, listen, we're doing something innovative. Don't take like risk को मैं इस तरह से कम कर सकता हूँ कि यार मैं वेन्यू वालों से कहूँ कि यार परसेंटेज एग्रीमेंट पे आओ मेरे साथ, आर्टिस्ट का कहूँ परसेंटेज पे आओ, इवेंट वाले से कहूँ परसेंटेज पे आओ, and let's try to design something. It might fail, it might not, and so that's one way of doing it." What I'm curious about is, and you mentioned the Nautanki tour as well. How successful was that? How open are the stakeholders? And क्योंकि obviously you've probably had these conversations, right? कि यार कुछ interesting करते हैं, कुछ मज़े करते हैं. Beyond that, how receptive are different people or different artists or different to innovative ideas like that? I understand the risk appetite, but there are ways to reduce that. थिंकिंग आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स के और भी बड़े मसले होते हैं कि यार क्या मतलब क्या ख्वारी है यार, क्यों मैं कर रहा हूँ ये जब मेरा काम चल रहा है? क्योंकि अगेन पाई इंक्रीजिंग का विजन नहीं है, बस वो है कि सिस्टम चल रहा है, मेरा सीन है, मैं अपने उसी तरह करूँगा. हाउ हैव डिफरेंट आर्टिस्ट्स एंड इवेंट मैनेजर्स एंड वेन्यूज एंड सो ऑन responded to innovation?
Interesting question. Okay, so here's the thing. A lot goes into producing a quality event. And so when we worked with Natanki Tour, we again leveraged the fact that we had the data on who does the best events in terms of event management, who does the best design and curation, who does the best artist management side of things. You know, we do the ticketing, the marketing and everything. And we put a lot of different teams together, as well as, like you said, doing things on percentage and so forth, to actually have a collaborative effort with both the artist and also everyone else involved. Most people don't have that vision, like you said. And that is not just the event organizer, that is also the venues, that is the artists, that is everyone. They're all like, yaar, hame apna cut chahiye. And the problem is there's so many different stakeholders involved that you need everyone, or at least the majority, to come on board to be able to do something like that. So when everyone is just after their own thing, कि यार, we need to get our cut and that's about it, you know, आप जाओ और अपना जाने, तो you can't get that outcome. That's the problem. But yes, I agree in the fact that, well, you need to be doing these much larger shows. And the industry, the mentality of, you know, our industry is not there yet, but that is exactly what you're saying is what happens internationally. There's promoters who come and they buy the event, or they say, okay, you know, the venue does it on a percentage, the promoter does it on a percentage, the artist does it on a percentage. It's like, this is your minimum guarantee कि आपको इतना मिलना ही मिलना है, which is significantly smaller. And on top of that, everything is based on the sales. And so everyone is in the process to try and make sure that event is a quality event, and that keeps happening. And so that's a big part of what we're doing right now as well. Since Pakistan, we've kind of understood, unfortunately, that, you know, things are the way they are. And, you know, you can try a lot to change it. And we've even tried to do our own events to up the quality. And it worked. You know, the event quality went up. But we need to also try and look to export our artists outside of Pakistan. And so that's what we're doing right now. So we're working on exporting our artists, having them do tours all over the world, having them work with different labels. And that allows you to have collaborations as well, right? So if you look at, for example, that exposure, let's say Hasan has now got, like, through the Natanki tour, okay? So a label came in, I'll give you the details of what happened. A label came in, they bought the IP for some of Hasan's stuff. As part of that, a certain budget goes towards production of new music, and a certain goes towards marketing and so forth, right? We spoke to them and we said, okay, let's take a percentage of this and let's put it towards doing a kick-ass tour, okay? And that is going to build his brand equity as a whole. And so when we did that, obviously there's a revenue aspect to it as well. So we did that tour, it changed the game. People saw the, like, shit, ye bhi hota hai, theek hai. And that helped, one, the industry, and it helped his brand equity. Like, you know, you're still talking about years later. And so from that, now he gets that exposure. It allowed him to get global tours, you know, and then he starts doing global tours and he's selling out those global tours. And when you start getting that exposure, what happens is more record deals come, and with record labels come more partnerships and collaborations with other artists. You know, you have, let's say, Hasan that's on songs with Talwinder and whatnot from India and so forth, right? And so these things happen. And now the future, right? So recently with the Pakistan and India war stuff was, you saw India ban Pakistani artist streaming. And overnight you saw an 80% dip. All of our artists have more listeners in India than they do in Pakistan. And so now
Why do you think that is?
It's a huge market, man, and we're very similar people at the end of the day. We still listen to the same music, we watch the same movies, we sort of have the same kind of...
No, that's fine, I get that. I get that. But having said that, मेरा personal इसमें opinion ये होगा that our promoters are doing a shitty job at promoting the existing artists in Pakistan. अगर आप मुझे ये कहते हैं कि यार you know, पाकिस्तान में X amount है और उसका 1.5x या 2x भी आ रहा है इंडिया से, so 50-50 है, मैं मान लेता, क्योंकि आपकी होम बेस एडवांटेज है. होम बेस हमेशा आपको प्रॉप अप करेगी और फिर आप ग्लोबली उसको जा करके या नेबरहुड में या ग्लोबली उसको एक्सपैंड करेंगे. एंड इसकी मैं आपको इस तरह से एग्जांपल देता हूँ कि आपने भी बड़ा अच्छा बोला प्रोमोटर्स का. आई थिंक वो जो इकोसिस्टम की हम बात कर रहे थे ना स्टार्ट में, इकोसिस्टम इंक्लूड्स अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स. उसमें प्रोमोटर्स भी हैं, बट उसमें इवेंट मैनेजर्स भी हैं, बट उसमें एक्सपीरियंस डिज़ाइनर्स भी हैं, जिन लोगों का काम सिर्फ और सिर्फ ये है कि यार हमने स्टेज पे एक्सपीरियंस डिज़ाइन क्या करना है. ऑडियो वीडियो इज़ जस्ट वन एस्पेक्ट. क्या मैं डांसर्स ला रहा हूँ, क्या मैं फायरवर्क्स डिस्प्ले को इंटीग्रेट कर रहा हूँ, क्या मैं देयर आर 100 डिफरेंट वेज टू create an experience, not just a concert, but an experience, and that would include start कौन कर रहा है, end कौन कर रहा है. You've been to a bunch of those, कि globally किस तरीके से वो हो रहा है, और पाकिस्तान में अनफॉर्चुनेटली हम अभी तक उसके बंदे की शक्ल के ऊपर ही खींचने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, राइट. कोल्ड प्ले है, बहुत अच्छी बात है, बट कोल्ड प्ले का एक्सपीरियंस बिकता है, वेरी ऑनेस्टली. एवरीबडी वॉन्ट्स टू गो देयर एंड वेयर दोज बैंड्स एंड टच दोज बलून्स एंड रन ऑन दोज इलेक्ट्रिसिटी थिंग्स एंड सो ऑन. वो पाकिस्तान में उस तरह के वो नोट्स नहीं है. आई कम्प्लीटली एग्री. बट देन व्हेन इट कम्स टू, और इसकी बहुत अच्छी एग्जांपल है कोरिया की. With okay, I don't know if you've seen the K-pop Demon Hunters, right? The way that these guys have come in, वो K-pop और K-drama में एकदम से राइज हुआ पिछले 5-8 साल के अंदर. और अब with K-pop Demon Hunters they've actually, उन्होंने जापान की मार्केट मारी है, क्योंकि उन्होंने एनिमे का एनिमेशन उठाई है, उन्होंने कोरिया की कल्चरल एस्थेटिक उठाई है, और उसको कंबाइन करके उन्होंने एक ग्लोबल प्रोडक्ट बनाई है, विच इज़ द हाइएस्ट व्यूड कंटेंट पीस ऑन नेटफ्लिक्स पीरियड एवर. इट्स फिनोमिनल. बट वजह उसकी ये है कि वहाँ पर द वे दैट दे मैनेज एन आर्टिस्ट, इट इज़ नॉट जस्ट द सॉन्ग्स. वो फ्रॉम द स्टार्ट वो सॉन्ग तो कर ही रहे हैं, बट उसको उसकी ब्रांडिंग किस तरह कर रहे हैं, उसकी PR किस तरह से कर रहे हैं, उन लोगों को पूरे को वो डिज़ाइन कर, दे डिज़ाइन देम अप फॉर सक्सेस, दे प्रॉप देम अप फॉर सक्सेस. एंड म्यूजिशियंस आर म्यूजिशियंस. मैं अगर इवन अपनी इंडस्ट्री में बात करूँ डिजिटल कॉन्टेंट की, हमारा भी यही है. वो हर बंदा अपने बेचारा लगा हुआ है. वो मैं 15 साल मुझे हो गए हैं, अब मैं नए बच्चे को देख रहा हूँ, वो भी उसी तरह से जलील हो रहा है. जिसका थोड़ा बहुत वो निकलता है तो वो थोड़ा वायरल हो जाता है. बट देयर इज नो नोड हु कैन कम इन एंड से कि लिसन, विल मेक यू अ बिगर ब्रांड एंड विल मेक मनी फ्रॉम दैट एज वेल, राइट. वो अ मैनेजर और 2 जिसका टोटल काम ये है कि इनबाउंड लीड्स आती रहेंगी, उस पर मैं 10% खाता रहूँगा, मेरी ज़िंदगी बेहतरीन चल रही है. मैं बिजनेस डेवलपर नहीं है, वो बस मैनेजर है. बट द रीज़न वाई आई एम सेइंग दिस इज़ बिकॉज मैंने म्यूजिशियंस के साथ जो इंटरेक्ट किया, और जनरली मैंने आर्टिस्ट्स के साथ इंटरेक्ट किया ना पिछले 4-5 साल के अंदर. अगेन आई अंडरस्टैंड इट्स एन इकोसेंट्रिक इंडस्ट्री. आई मीन दैट इंडस्ट्री एज वेल. उसमें मैं कंटेंट क्रिएटर्स को भी देखता हूँ, उनके भी यही मसाइल हैं. बट सर, वो पूरी दुनिया में भी आर्टिस्ट एग्जिस्ट करता है ना. वो आर्टिस्ट भी आता है, और उसने आकर के जब अपनी नई फिल्म आती है तो वो आके TV पे भी बैठा होता है. जब उसकी नई म्यूज़िक आती है तो वो आके शोज़ पे भी आता है. उसने कॉन्वर्जेसन भी ड्राइव करनी है. उसने मेक श्योर करना है कि मैंने विज़न बनाना है और मैंने विज़न बेचना है. आई हैव स्पोकन टू एवरी थॉट लीडर ऑफ दिस कंट्री इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिफरेंट इंडस्ट्रीज. आर्टिस्ट्स आर वन जिसको मैं क्रैक ही नहीं कर पाया. मुझे आज तक समझ ही नहीं आई. एंड हसन रहीम बीइंग वन ऑफ देम. हसन, ह्यूज फैन ऑफ हसन. आई हैव स्पोकन टू हिम ऑन इंस्टाग्राम. मैंने कहा कि यार भाई कभी आना पॉडकास्ट के ऊपर. हर दफ़ा मुझे क्या बोलता है, और यहाँ पर मैं आपको पकड़ूंगा. मुझे नहीं पता कब से आप उसको मैनेज कर रहे हैं. हर दफ़ा उसने बोला मेरी मैनेजमेंट से डिस्कशन हुई है, मैनेजमेंट कहती है पॉडकास्ट नहीं करनी हमने अभी. दैट फॉर मी इज़ वेरी क्यूरियस, बिकॉज टेक्निकली द मैनेजमेंट शुड बी प्लानिंग एंड जनरली द इको सिस्टम शुड बी प्लानिंग कि यार हमें हसन का एक टूर कराना चाहिए जनवरी टू दिसंबर, जिसमें वो पाकिस्तान में पहले घूमेगा, फिर वो उसको लेकर जाएगा ग्लोबली, वो उधर पूरा घुमाएगा. लेकिन उस टूर की एक्साइटमेंट के लिए हमें मीडिया स्पॉट्स फिगर आउट करने चाहिए. हमें उसमें चुटखले करने चाहिए कि हसन जो है वो जा रहा है और जाके इस्लामाबाद में F7 में आके एक रैंडम चुटखला कर रहा है जिससे वायरल वीडियो हो रही है, क्योंकि दैट इज़ व्हाट क्रिएट्स द एक्साइटमेंट. गाने वो हर वक्त नहीं बेच सकता भाई. एड शीरान आखिर में वही गाता है जो कि वो है. कोल्ड प्ले आखिर में वही गाता है जो पुराने गाने हैं उसके. पीपल कम बिकॉज देयर इज़ अ चैटर, देयर इज़ अ बज़. वो बज़ कोई क्रिएट ही नहीं कर रहा. सो आई एम क्यूरियस, अगेन यूर ऑन द बोथ ऑन द मैनेजमेंट एंड द इवेंट साइड, बट स्टिल वेरी इनएफिशिएंट. हम बहुत पुराने चल रहे हैं कि यार बस वो आर्टिस्ट है, उसका गाना वायरल होगा, सक्सेसफुल होगा, एक्साइटमेंट जनरेट करेगा, फिर वो 10 कॉन्सर्ट्स करवाएगा, उससे मैं पैसा निचोड़ूंगा, फिर मैं अगले पे चला जाऊंगा. वी आर नॉट रियली प्रॉपिंग अप आर्टिस्ट्स. What are your thoughts about that?
This is exactly what we're now trying to do. So we've recently announced a brand under TicketWala called Source Talent. So we had, in fact, I told you about the Source digital marketing agency that we had launched. Eventually, we put a pause on that, even though it was doing better than TicketWala at the time. TicketWala was always the end goal. And so we couldn't focus. We put a pause on that entirely, let go of all our clients, and just said TicketWala. Now, TicketWala ke niche, we've launched another brand called Source Talent, right? And under that, we're trying to solve for everything that you have just said. Okay, so the problem is in this industry, always has been, it was simply just bookings. Okay, someone knows someone, you'll eventually get to ask the customs manager and you'll book him for your event, and that was it. the artist shows up, performs, leaves. No real experience that was being delivered by the event itself, the production quality, or even necessarily the artist, right? They'll come, they'll sing, or they'll play the guitar, or whatever it is, and that's it. Like you said, there's none of that, कि यार dances होना चाहिए, ये होना चाहिए, वो होना, fireworks होना चाहिए, like a full-on experience. And that is what we're now trying to change. So if, you take Hasan as an example, right? So we did the audiovisual experience, which was, let's say, the beginning part of that, trying to change the game a little bit. And now more recently, we launched the Unfiltered Tour. The Unfiltered Tour completely changed from the way he normally performs to an auditorium where he's performing with a live band. And all those songs have been re-recorded and remade with a live band. And so it's a completely different, more intimate experience. And so each of these things becomes different IPs, right? So one might be an audiovisual experience, one might be like some crazy festival with all sorts of stuff, like how Coldplay and whatever even does it. One might be something like Unfiltered. And so trying to not replicate, but create these different, unique experiences for different artists based on them. Based on their brand, based on, obviously they are a huge part of that entire creativity and the experience.
falsafa hai na jahan se wo thought se aa rahe hain.
Yeah, so trying to do stuff like that is what we're going after. Trying to then take that artist global and get them to do those international shows, get them, to work with other artists, get them to work with record labels. And a lot of this comes down to now funding as well. So once those record labels come in, right, like they did with the Notanki tour, we then had the funding to be able to put on an experience like this, right? So one thing is you need the funding. The other thing is you need access to be able to do these things. And then let's say there's the infrastructure element. Ke bhai, city shuts down, last second pe NOCs cancel ho jate hain, and venues just can't handle it, or they're just not good enough. And so there's a lot of different moving parts within this, So we're trying to work on all of that right now. And that's why we've suddenly now expanded also over the last, couple of months from your 1-2 artists to 8 artists. And now we're kind of holding off on bringing new artists because it's about maintaining the quality with those artists. It's not about, hum 8 se 25 pe to next week bhi ho jayega hamare liye. But it's not about that. It's when you do that, you lose the quality.
That makes sense. Again, jo mera uska wo tha thought, why are artists so uninterested in interacting with consumers online? अपने socials पे वो करते हैं. And I understand there is a, particularly with musicians, actors का भी ये problem है, but musicians का specifically है कि there is a vibe. Obviously, they create the vibe. एक ज़माने में वो rock stars होते थे, आज वो एक बड़ी different सी वो है. When you go and एक आप गाना गाते हुए आपने अपना आपका सेट सूट करके कॉन्सर्ट पे आके या म्यूज़िक वीडियो में करके एक वाइब डिफरेंट होती है. जब आप सामने फिजिकली बैठते हो तो थिंग्स आर वेरी डिफरेंट. बट ग्लोबली अगर आप देखें ना तो म्यूज़िक इज़ म्यूज़िक. बियॉन्ड द म्यूज़िक देयर इज़ अ लॉट ऑफ ह्यूमनाइजेशन ऑफ द आर्टिस्ट दैट क्रिएट्स अ कनेक्ट, दैट क्रिएट्स एन इन्फ्लुएंस दैट मेक्स पीपल more than the fan of the music, they make the individual a fan of the artist. उसके अंदर आपकी documentaries आती हैं. Just Spotify, by the way, has been doing a fairly good job recently, where they've started to go behind the scenes. उन्होंने उमेर का बड़ा अच्छा किया, जो प्रोड्यूसर है. उन्होंने अभी recently, I believe, Fusic का मैंने देखा है, जो कि उनकी एक episodes आ रही हैं और उसमें वो उन्होंने behind the scenes of sorts दिखाया है. So many tours happen, we don't see behind the scenes of what the artist is doing जनरली. और ग्लोबली अभी ये उस तरफ मार्केट जा चुकी है. ऑलरेडी मैंने मेंशन किया कि देयर इज़ नो इंटरेक्शन. लाइक आई हैवंट सीन. अहमद अली बट जो है वो थोड़ा सा कर रहा है लाहौर में, जो कि उसकी पॉडकास्ट के ऊपर स्टिल आपको मिल जाता है पुराना, क्योंकि वो उसका नेटवर्क है, वो दोस्त यार हैं उसके. आई थिंक तो वो सारे के सारे वो जुनून वाले आ गए, अली अज़मत आ गया, या नूरी आ गया, ये आ गया, वो आ गया. बट जो नया जो इस हाइप में है ना, वो हाइप वाला कह रहा है कि यार नहीं, मैं तो बहुत बड़ा किंग हूँ, मैंने तो अभी बात ही नहीं करनी. मसला ये है कि आप कह रहे हैं कि मैं अनफिल्टर्ड टूर कर रहा हूँ, उसके पीछे ये फ़लसफ़ा है. फ़लसफ़ा हमें कैसे पता लगेगा? फ़लसफ़ा तब पता लगेगा जब टूर पूरा हो चुका होगा और 4 लोग आके उसके बारे में बात करेंगे. अनलेस वो आर्टिस्ट आए और आके बोले कि यार बिफोर द गोइंग टू द टूर वो जाए और जाके इंटरेक्ट करे, वो जाके बताए कि यार देखो मैं लाइफ में इस तरफ गुजर रहा था तो मैंने ये सोचा और उसकी बेसिस के ऊपर मैं आप उसको एक एक्सपीरियंस की फॉर्म में इस तरीके से लेकर आ रहा हूँ, एंड वो बात करे उसके बारे में शेयर करे, राइट. Why are artists so unavailable? Is that I don't know. I mean, मैं बिल्कुल एज अ साइड बोल रहा हूँ, बेस्ड ऑन माई ओन एक्सपीरियंस बोल रहा हूँ कि मुझे मेरे व्यूअर्स आके बोलते हैं, मैं उन व्यूअर्स की बात आगे लेकर जाता हूँ जब मुझे हमेशा शट डोर मिला है कि यार नहीं ये प्रॉब्लम है. एंड सो देन आई स्टॉप ट्राइंग इवन टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट. इज इट एन ईगो थिंग? इज इट एन आर्टिस्ट इनसिक्योरिटी थिंग कि यार हमने अपने आप को अपने एक्चुअल सेल्फ को नहीं लेकर आना, हमारी वाइब ख़राब होगी? ये तो मैंने बहुत ही दो नेगेटिव चीज़ें बोल दी. और इज़ इट मोर ऑफ अ कि आई डोंट नो, इट डजंट मेक सेंस, व्हाट डू वी टॉक अबाउट, समझ नहीं आ रही. Why don't they communicate as much as any other industry, for that matter?
Yeah, so I'm going to take 2 points on that. One, so the initial part, which was that with Source Talent, so before we didn't have the funding, and so now that we actually have money, what we're doing is we're expanding the team. Okay, so it was also, even when you're working with us, chalo, we were doing a lot more than what the standard booker would do, right? We were actually managing the artists, doing the brand deals, record deals, all that stuff. But now what we want to do is we've actually got a legal team on board, right? That's specifically trained on entertainment law. Then you have someone you have designers and video editors and whatnot. You have strategists, have your secondary managers and so forth. They're actually there to, bring quality and change the game a little bit. So that's something that's now in process. I think it's only been like 2 months or so that we've started doing all of this. Okay. So that's hopefully a change that you'll see over the next few months from our end, where we actually are able to bring up that industry in that way, or at least improve the quality. When it comes to actually the podcast, that's something that probably has to do with strategy or planning for the most part. I can't really
And
comment.
I'm not necessarily, by the way, saying just podcast. I'm just saying कि वो media connectivity है ही नहीं. Like, it's podcast is one aspect. You could put Hasan Rahim in 10 different content creators, collaborations, and that would generate a lot of it as well. It's just an overall ecosystem.
This is exactly where we want to come in, right? So that's why we've tried to formalize as Source Talent, so we can make these things happen. It's because the industry it's booming, but it's still fragmented to a certain extent, right? And we want to bring that exposure. We want to change all of this. Exactly do the things that you're saying we should do is what we want to do. It's not there yet.
Interesting. Why do you think, again, जो मेरा personal वो है कि why do you think the artists tend to not do it though? I mean, you're not doing it for them. Why aren't they going ahead and speaking?
Yeah, honestly, I have no idea. I think it's a great idea. I think it should be done personally, right? I try to set up a few for you guys as well for this podcast, and so I think that it should definitely happen personally. I think they should be out there doing these podcasts. Why they didn't, honestly, I have no idea. I personally manage the entire events and ticketing side. The artist management, it's not under my domain personally. So the other Zayaan, he looks after the entire thing.
I see. You guys are looking towards expanding on. ज़ाहिर है बहुत सारी expansions आ रही हैं. There's a bunch of different ideas. Are you looking at now raising investment as well? My understanding is one of your team members is actively working on that.
Yes. So
what's the plan behind that? What are you looking at?
So a lot of the stuff that we just mentioned, it's about opening up the markets for one, and improving the quality. And I think once you actually expand the pie, there's so much untapped potential. I don't think you even scratched the surface of entertainment in Pakistan right now. And we are in pole position to capture it. It's just there's a lot left to do. I think there is also an element definitely of international expansion that we want to do. That is for desi events, that is for our own artists, that is to create Indo-Pak shows. So we have, let's say, these events where I think if you look at, let's say, Talwinder's top songs, I think 3 of them have either Hasan or Afuzik on them or something like that. And so you need to curate these Pakistan and India shows as well. And that's how you also will eventually get market share through ticketing abroad, right? So it's about, again, expanding and opening up those markets and creating those markets. And we know through data that there is a hunger for that. Those events are much needed. People want it, right? So Hasan is selling out shows individually, Talvinder is selling out shows individually. Together, especially when they have the songs together, and then both of their top songs, it's going to do very well. And then you see the streaming ban, and you're like, well, now they can't even listen to these artists, and there's an 80, 70, 80, 90% drop on these artists, right? You can now, how do you listen to them? Those people now want to they want to experience those events. They'll go to Dubai, they'll experience those events, or the people sitting in the US or wherever will experience those events and so forth. And so that's also a big part of what we want to do. And then obviously bringing international artists here and so forth. So for the most
that makes
part,
sense.
it's expanding.
Investment gathering का क्या plan है? Are you looking at local? Are you going to local VCs? Are you going to international VCs? What's like?
It needs to be strategic. Honestly, right? So whatever we do, we've bootstrapped this entire time, and we can continue to do that. We have at least enough money in the bank to even grow way faster than we have in the past. And obviously more capital will help us scale significantly faster and get a lot of this done and retain market share. But whatever capital comes in needs to be strategic. It needs to open doors for us, whatever those doors are, whether it's record labels for our artists, whether it's events globally, whether it's venues in Pakistan, whatever that might be. Maybe it's acquisition offers that could open up in the next few years, right? We know that people are already interested in acquisition. So it needs to be strategic. It's not just कि भाई हाँ पैसे आ जाए कोई भी आ जाए, that we're not going to accept it.
Makes sense. We're at the 1 hour 48 minute mark, so I'm going to wrap this up. Zayaan, one question that I'm going to ask you, generally I ask all of my guests, and I'm curious again, you've been in Pakistan all your life, you studied in the UK, and I'm sure you visit quite often different countries. Pakistan में आपने events की space में particularly, you've seen a progression and you've seen that growth for your own company as well, and overall जो जिस तरह से market open up हुई है. I know that there's a certain off camera भी हमारी बात हो रही थी, growth के ऊपर हमारी इतनी नहीं हुई, but there is a very clear vision here कि यार laterally and vertically मैं उसको किस तरीके से grow करूँगा, चाहे मुझे अपने events concerts को करना है, चाहे अभी बहुत सारी industry है जो कि event segment में अभी तक खुली नहीं है. उसको मद्देनज़र रखते हुए जाहिर है कि अगर आप बेट कर रहे हैं पाकिस्तान के ऊपर तो उसमें कोई ना कोई तो आप कुछ ना कुछ तो देख रहे होंगे, यानी कि आई एम नॉट श्योर इफ़ यूर लाइक अ योलो गाय कि यार बस ठीक है देखी जाएगी, या डू यू हैव सम सॉर्ट ऑफ अ विजन फॉर द फ्यूचर. उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में आई वुड लव टू नो हाउ डू यू सी पाकिस्तान ऑफ 2050 25 years from now, not just within your own space but also overall जो पाकिस्तान as it's evolving, how do you see it with this small caveat कि आप if नहीं इस्तेमाल कर सकते, if our government does this or if our people do this. I just want a vision of इस वक्त आपकी जो understanding है उसको extrapolate करें और 25 साल के बाद के पाकिस्तान को give me an image of what that looks like.
Yeah, so I don't think I even need to use if, because I think it's a very straight trajectory of where we're going, especially within the entertainment industry. We've seen exponential growth in terms of number of events, number of tickets per event, number of users looking to discover different things to do, number of new artists coming out, new songs coming out per artist, and artists going outside of Pakistan and artists coming inside of Pakistan. New venues opening up, new organizers popping up. Every single metric is going up exponentially and has been over the last 6 years. We see that growth to only get stronger over the next 15, 20, 25 years. Pakistan's market will open up so much because, I mean, you look at comparables all the time, right? So you say, okay, India is like this or Bangladesh is like this or whatever. And it's a very different market. For example, alcohol is not open over here, right? So there's no club scenes and culture over here. But that is exactly why events will grow exponentially. It's because you don't have those clubs that people go to events for entertainment instead. And so that is going to keep growing. And the quality is going to keep getting better because, like I mentioned earlier, there will come a saturation point and other cities will open up and then there will come another saturation point and it will need to just keep getting better and better and better. Over the last couple of years, we've seen funds coming into Pakistan, record labels coming into Pakistan, buying out these artists' IPs, investing in them hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce better content, to produce better live shows, to work globally, to work locally. And so once that funding comes in, it allows you to open up and do better things. And so we see that trajectory only getting stronger over the next few years. And we think that we should hopefully be at the forefront or in the middle of that, because we're not just trying to do the ticketing and the marketing or just work with artists. We're trying to grow the ecosystem as a whole. And it's only once we expand the entire pie that, TicketWala becomes very valuable in the long run.
Makes sense. Zayaan, thank you so much for taking the time out, sharing all that insight. I'm excited to see where you guys go from here. And particularly on the artist side, I think, yes, I think tickets are a byproduct of how well you nurture and sort of water the industry. And anyone who's just working on a silo, वो quick एक local maxima पे आ जाएगा और फंस जाएगा, वो उससे ज़्यादा आगे grow नहीं कर सकता. I think Korea gives a great sort of a case study of how vertically integrated sort of labels have taken Korean culture and art to a global stage. And I feel like कि पाकिस्तान में भी now in the age of digital, शायद पुराने वक्त में ये इतना बड़ा मगरमच्छ था कि इसको कोई एक बंदा सॉल्व नहीं कर सकता था. बट आई थिंक अब वो टाइम है कि एक्चुअली अगर आप ग्रास रूट से स्टार्ट करें तो आहिस्ता करके यू कैन एक्चुअली क्रिएट समथिंग extremely meaningful and extremely impactful, and I'm excited to see where you guys go from there. I think for anyone listening, the biggest value that I see in the work that you're doing is not just TicketWala. It's in the ecosystem that you're creating across the multi different dimensions. I do hope कि because it's such a big problem कि उसके बहुत सारे different आपको ना वो बहुत सारे लोग इसको आर्ग्यू करेंगे कि यार स्टार्टअप में फोकस नहीं है भाई, टिकटें हैं, टिकटों को सेट करो, आर्टिस्ट भी मैनेज कर रहे हो, अब बैठ के वो जो टैलेंट को भी वो कर रहे हो.
And this is actually the biggest problem we faced when we were trying to initially raise funding, which was the fact that we were focused on wanting to do all these different things and trying to explain that, look, it's not just ticketing. Ticketing is the byproduct, as you mentioned. You need to expand into and horizontally and vertically integrate into all these different areas to open up that market. And once you do that, ticketing is the byproduct. And also you're just taking cuts of all the small things. But it's been very, very difficult to, try and open up each one of those smaller segments. But now that we've been able to grow that ecosystem. Without that, I guarantee ticketing would still be way, way behind where we are right now. If the focus was always just e-tickets and nothing else. Mm-hmm. That's the difference that we brought that other platforms were not able to bring in the 7-8 years before us.
Definitely. Zayaan bhai, thank you so much for taking the time out and sharing all that insight.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
And for all of you guys, let me know in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on TicketWala? What are your thoughts on the entertainment and events space in Pakistan? Have you recently attended an event? क्या आपको मसाइल नज़र आए? क्या आपको potential नज़र आता है उसके अंदर? What are your thoughts on कि किस तरीके से इस पूरी ecosystem को बेहतर किया जा सकता है? What is missing in the experiences that the Pakistani artists or event managers are designing? उसमें क्या क्या किया जा सकता है? Again, दुबई में बहुत कुछ हो रहा है, बाकी दुनिया में बहुत कुछ हो रहा है. अगर आपने अटेंड किया है तो what parts of that do you think can Pakistan take in as well? Would love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. But nonetheless, this was Muzamil Hasan Zaidi. You're watching Thought Behind Things. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.